Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's a Monday. It's an overreaction Monday on October 26th, and there's a lot to react to. Atlanta United lost at home to DC United late 2-1. It makes the playoff push far more desperate going into Orlando on Wednesday. We'll get into your thoughts on that, things that popped up from the match. We'll get into the rest of the MLS playoff picture. The rest of the results in terms of Atlanta United's playoff push weren't all that bad on Saturday. We'll talk about El Tráfico from yesterday on ABC. We got VAR from around the world because everybody is not newly angry at VAR, but angry at VAR for some new reasons at least. So we'll get into all of that as we go today. Some housekeeping up front. We've got soccer over there tonight at 7. Tons of stuff to get to there as a busy week around the leagues in the world happened. Champions League is back tomorrow. Europa League is back this week. Copa Sudamericana debuts this week. So it'll be a jam-packed soccer over there show. 7 o'clock tonight. That's where we'll get into most of the worldwide stuff. If you guys have reactions to it right now, go ahead and send them our way. That's fine, and we'll touch on it. But we'll go deeper into detail this evening. We have 5 Marcelino Moreno scarves left that we are trying to sell so we can make our donation to Atletico Palmira. 5 left. They're $25. Shoot us a message. We'll get you taken care of. We'll get that out to you this week so we can get it in your hands and get a donation made to Club Atletico Palmira. It looks like it will be right about $2,000, which is pretty awesome. It's more than I expected. It's more than if we just sold the scarves by themselves because so many of you have donated extra or people just made a donation, which is awesome. The money will go to the Escuela de Football for 4 to 8-year-olds at Atletico Palmira that they've named after Marcelino Moreno. So trying to wrap that up this week. We'll keep you posted on the donation and everything that goes along with that. This will be a busy week, as you guys know, with a midweek match. We'll have the run-up tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock. Kelly Francis will return to helm that one. We'll get ready for Orlando. We'll have an overreaction Thursday. Then we'll have a preview for the run-up on Saturday night as we get ready for Cincinnati to come to town on Sunday. Jam-packed week of SDH stuff. All right. Let's jump straight into the Twitch pitch because, as you guys know, you can send us your reactions a multitude of ways here. You can join us on Twitch, twitch.tv/soccerdownhere, and a lot of people have moved over to watch on Twitch, and thank you for doing that. And thank you to the people who subscribe on Twitch, especially those of you who have Amazon Prime and use that to benefit us. Thank you. All that is really much, much appreciated, and Twitch is a great way, not just while we're yakking away to interact with you, but for you guys to interact with one another, which has been a very cool little bonus of everything we're doing with Twitch. So twitch.tv/soccerdownhere. You can join the conversation there. You can tweet at us at soccerdownhere. You can email us soccerdownhere@gmail. We'll start on the Twitch pitch with Sean. Sean Vergara says, say it, we're just not that good. On to 2021. It's not on to 2021 yet because there's no benefit to being on to 21 as opposed to not worrying about these 3 games. You are what your record says you are. I mean, there's no way around that. Do I think that they should be better than their record? Yeah, I do. I think there's more talent there than their record. But there's no benefit to just saying we don't care about these last 3 games because if you get in, you get more training sessions. You get an opportunity to get hot. You haven't gotten hot. You were better. I think you were better, and I think that's a fair way to put it. But you were not good enough against a team that has been worse than you all season long. That's unacceptable. It just is. There's no way around it. We can get into all the details, and I think at times what I'm seeing, and I totally understand the reaction to this, but at times we maybe misinterpret some of the details to what happened, some of the individual performances or some of the performances on the field in this, because we're angry about the results. Sometimes performances, and especially individual performances, don't match up with results. You see teams outplay others and lose. You see teams that have great individual performances and a couple of bad ones and lose or win. It happens. So we'll get into all of it across all the boundaries today with all of that, but just keep in mind, we're going to dig into everything as much as we can. And if we think a player played well, it doesn't mean that it's okay that the team lost. That should be understood. I just want to ram that one home a couple times. You've got to go for it now. I mean, the reality is this. You've got to go where I thought 7 points would be enough. I still think 7 points is enough. But now, 3 of those points that were easier to attain, which is at home, first off, and against DC, second off. Now you've got to go find those 3 points against Orlando on the road or against Columbus on the road. Both are among the top teams in the East. And you go back to records saying who you are, well, they're good. The record says so. So now you've got to go get a tougher 3 points somewhere. Has this team shown a likelihood to do that? No, they haven't. Doesn't mean they can't, but they have not shown that likelihood. That's why the 3 points against DC were so critical, and you didn't get them. Even a point would have been big if you had been able to secure it after John Gallagher's goal. Even a point would have felt better. Losing all 3 in the way that you did is very, very, very frustrating.
Yeah, and looking at responses after the match and all of that, you sit there and going into this match against DC, that was one of the ones that you had earmarked as one of those 3-point games. And to your point, and I think that it's really important, I think that we can separate the idea of players playing well within the context of an end result that didn't match. Just because you lose doesn't mean that everyone didn't play well in that prism. And so I think that we can sit there and we can isolate who played well at the same time and sit there and discuss an end result that wasn't desired.
Yeah. Christopher Abel says, it would be a lot better if we didn't have one of the worst keepers in the league. Let's play Alec Can. I think it's harsh, but Brad Kazan was at fault on the first goal. I mean, he's at fault there. It's a save that he makes 9.5 times out of 10. And it's a time where you can't give up a goal in that way. Miles Robinson's positioning is also at fault. There's questions about how defending on these are organized, because normally I think it's a safe assumption your goalkeeper's involved in organizing who has who, where everybody is. And one, I don't know why Miles was with Russell Canal, so I would have expected him to be with Donovan Pines or with Rivas at that point. And this isn't the first time that's happened. I mean, go back to the game 1 with Joseph Martinez on Walker Zimmerman. That's not a matchup you want. And that's different than how they've defended corners in the past, with Joseph on that corner of the 6 kind of as the first free person to head anything away that's short. This has been going on. It has to be more organized. It has to be better. All that being said, the save is one that should have been made, and it wasn't. And that's a very difficult thing to swallow. The second goal, I think, is shared fault. And I think Brad's involved in that just a little bit because he doesn't notify, he doesn't communicate, he doesn't scream that Rivas has drifted away from everybody. Now, he might be locked in expecting the cross to come early, but I think you can see from Paredes' touch, he's up against the end line. He's just trying to save it first. He's got to take that extra touch to keep possession. You have time to look a little bit. And between Gazan, Meza, and Robinson, they all lost Rivas. Robinson closed the ground the quickest because he's the quickest between him and Meza. But Robinson first passed him on, it appeared, as he ran into Meza's area. Meza was defending space there and not a person, which is not good. And Robinson was too slow to realize that Meza didn't pick Rivas up when he drifted away from the 2 center backs. It's a goal you can't give up. Again, I mean, both goals are ones you just can't give up. These are bad goals for different reasons. I don't think Brad Gazan's one of the worst goalkeepers in the league at all. I think you're washing away some very strong performances from him recently. But he hasn't had a great season, and there's been a couple of these kinds of goals. And that's something that has to change because, again, as we said, when you're in this situation and you don't have a lot of firepower and you're not scoring a lot of goals, every defensive issue becomes magnified. This is one of them. You know, when you give up a bad goal here and there, and every goalkeeper does, let's not fool ourselves. Every goalkeeper does this. Well, when you're not scoring goals on a regular basis, that mistake means more, and that's why we isolate it. Brad Gazan's been an outstanding goalkeeper in this league. He's been one of the best since he came to Atlanta. He has the most clean sheets of any goalkeeper in Major League Soccer since he came to Atlanta. He's had a couple of these kind of goals this season. It can't become a trend. It just can't become a trend because, especially now, you don't have the margin of error to deal with that trend at all. And we'll just have to see what happens.
One of the points that Colonel wanted to focus on this morning, since we're talking about individual players, he says, dwelling on something positive, John Gallagher, Atlanta United leading scorer, double the two behind him, was born not too long ago in Dundalk, Republic of Ireland, hashtag come on the town, hashtag Somos Atlanta.
Yeah, it's wild. John Gallagher has turned into a player that is important. He looked fresh, too, in this one. I think he had really played a whole lot of minutes this year that was unexpected, and he was worn down in previous matches and hadn't given you too much. I like him playing from wide, too. I'm not a fan of Gallagher as a true number 9 with this team or in general. I just don't think he has that player profile. Coming in from the outside where he's free to come inside, yeah, I like that because he can read where to make his runs. He can read the game from that spot. There's a lot of people hyped up about Gallagher, which I totally understand. When you look at the team for next year, I think Gallagher becomes a super sub, a very important role. But if you have this team at full strength, I don't think he's a starter in this group. Probably I don't know. He could be up for an option on his contract because he was drafted in 2018. So you start looking at basic contracts and the way they go. He could be up for an option. Don't know what that next number is, but I think he, at a minimum, is a valuable asset. Even if you decide, we're going to go in a different direction here because he's not going to start or he wants to start somewhere in the league and he's not going to get that opportunity here. He's somebody that you would pick up the option and maybe be available. You never know. But he's put himself in that position with hard work this year. He's put himself in that position with extremely hard work, and he's a very versatile player. There's been a little bit of a growing movement that I have seen about he was played out of position for years and trying to throw shade at the front office. I want to fix this narrative, and if you don't pay attention to Atlanta United 2, I guess I can understand how you might have missed this, but this is what happened. And I've had these conversations with people that were involved in it at the time. So, Atlanta United 2, 2018, first year of the club, you were struggling for depth at times, and you had a crowded schedule with MLS, and you were figuring out how to operate all of this stuff going on at one time. You came to a run of games for Atlanta United 2 where you didn't have a lot of help coming from the first team. You didn't have any right-sided player, period. And Scott Donnelly, the manager at the time, had to shift into a 4-4-2 diamond because that was what he could make out of the players he had available. Even then, he still didn't have a right back. So John Gallagher said, I'll play right back. That was really the only option he had. He did it well. Then he did it again in the next match because I think it was one of these like midweek, weekend sort of things. He started playing very, very well there. He had started in a wing position on the right wing in a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, whatever you want to call it. So he starts playing right back. They get some bodies back. They decide, we're going to go into the 3-5-2 that the team is playing with the first team a lot. So let's give Gallagher a run at wing back and let's see how that looks. And it looked really good because he was getting forward, he was contributing to the attack, but he was defending well. When you look at the team at that time, John Gallagher was not displacing Joseph Martinez. He was not displacing Tito Villalba. He was not displacing Ezequiel Barco. He was not displacing Miguel Almiron. He was not going to see time on the field for the first team in that role. As a right back, right wing back, in addition to somebody who could play up top, that changes what he could be potentially. It changed it so much that coming into 2019, I think the first couple games when he played in 2019 before he went to Aberdeen, he played as a right winger again, not as a right wing back or a right back. And I think he did play a little bit of that before he left. But then he goes to Aberdeen, and Aberdeen plays him as a central midfielder. They play him as a number 10. They play him as an 8. They play him as a right winger. They play him as a right back. I mean, he's playing everywhere for Aberdeen, but getting a lot of time. Then he comes back here. What's the first position he plays? Left center back in a 3 center back setup in that second half against Columbus, where you're just throwing everything at the wall. The versatility has helped him. To say that it held him back and he's a lesser player because he didn't play up top from day one when he arrived, it is kind of ludicrous, to be honest, because he would not be playing here if that was the case. He would have been fighting it out with Josef Samuel for time at the number 9 position with Atlanta United 2 in 2018. He got more time playing out wide on the right. He got even more time playing as a right back and a wing back, to the point that the club said, you know what, we might have something here. Let's continue to take a look at it. To the point that Aberdeen saw it and said, hey, we really like this player. We'd like to bring him in on loan. Is that okay? Yes, okay, let's do this. These are good things. So let's stop the narrative that the team didn't understand that he could play up top and they just played him out of position willy-nilly. There are reasons for this. And you see this all the time with players. You see lots of attacking players who become outside backs because they were very good in college or they were very good in the academies, and they're not good enough at the first team level as a forward or as a winger. It happens. I think John Gallagher is a utility player who can play a lot of positions, bring a lot of energy. He's a very smart player who can fit in anywhere on the field. He reads the game well. He can defend. He can get forward. It's a good player to have. I don't know if he's good enough to start with a top team in any necessary position, but I think he's good enough to be a player on your bench who can fill a role, who could play, depending on the situation, right back, right wing back, a number 10, a right winger, a left winger, or a number 9. You love to have those guys on your bench because that means you can think about your 18 far differently because you have a player who can fill a ton of roles. So the idea that playing him out of position, which is a fallacy in and of itself, let's stop thinking about positions as rigid, is wrong. It's just wrong. That happened in 2018, and he benefited from it. And it's the same conversation that happened with Midge Purse, to be perfectly honest, in the NWSL this past summer. Why is she playing right back? Why is she playing right back? She said so herself. She did not see a future for her at the national team getting ahead of players as a right winger, but as a right back, maybe different conversation. She might be able to play herself into a national team spot. Doesn't mean that experiment always works 100%, but that's part of it. I think Gallagher has embraced playing a lot of positions because he knows it's going to get him on the field. There's nothing wrong with that.
You mentioned, let me do it this way, 6 different, for me, I'm left-handed, so 6 different positions that John Gallagher can or has played. And I would think that having that kind of versatility, having that kind of a player who has that kind of a versatility, you mentioned it. You can work your 18 a bunch of different ways. To have that player who can sit there and it's like, okay, well, if I need him here, I can put him here and be confident about it. If I need him to do something else, I can put him here. You mentioned 6 different locations to have a player like a John Gallagher. And I think that to have that kind of a player, it's uber valuable to have that kind of a player on an MLS roster, depending on the situation, because, okay, situation A, I can have Gallagher do this. Situation B, I might need him to do this. I would think that that's valuable, and I've never considered that as playing out of position in quotation marks. I've just viewed that as someone who's incredibly versatile that on any given day could be in any one of a multitude of locations to help you out. And you need those kind of guys.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, and it's not a knock on John Gallagher. John Gallagher is a good player, but John Gallagher is not going to start in Atlanta if they have the players that they want in those attacking positions. He could come off the bench. He could be a reserve. He could be a player who spells somebody. He could be an injury replacement. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But John Gallagher is going to improve his stock by playing a lot of positions. So the whole out-of-position thing, look, positions are very fluid now, as we've seen with Liverpool, as we've seen with Manchester City, as we've seen with teams who try to solve problems with injuries and suspensions, and they say, you know what, let's play this guy. PSG this weekend, and a lot of people went nuts about it. PSG decided to play a defensive midfielder at center back and a center back at defensive midfield. And Tuchel talked about why. He said, look, we want somebody who can deal with the press more effectively, in the back, better on the ball, and it worked. That's how you have to think about the game now. It's not rigid with formations. This is not the 80s. It's okay. You can play different places. John Gallagher's proven it. And I think he's improving his stock to be here next year because of playing all these different positions.
No, right there with you. And I think that, once again, you're getting this game by game display of, hey, I can do this, hey, I can do this, hey, I can do this. That makes you that much more valuable for the future if you want to hang around in the location.
Good morning, Shiva. Shiva said she's been waiting for us all weekend. Oh, no. I'm scared now, Shiva. Good morning. Ricky says, Barcelona thought they were going to catch up to Real Madrid. They probably did think that. It didn't go so well. We'll get into the details of it because, man, there's a lot of fallout there. And one thing to keep an eye on all day on the Barcelona front, the Catalan government ruled that Barcelona's efforts to try to halt the vote of no confidence, Barcelona cited safety reasons. The Catalan government said, no, everybody will be safe. The vote is not going to be halted. And now there's talk that Bartomeu and his people might resign ahead of a vote. They might not even let it get to a vote to get voted, get a vote of no confidence on file. They might just resign ahead of that. So stay tuned. There's some speculation that could happen as early as this afternoon that Bartomeu resigns as president of Barcelona. We'll get into it deeper on Soccer Over There tonight. Mezzano says, anyone else a little bitter that Vela comes back for LAFC and scores goals, but Joseph isn't coming back to save us this season? I mean, it's different injuries. There's no way to be bitter about it, Mezzano, because, Joseph tore a ligament in his knee and Vela did not. So, you wish you had Joseph able to come back this season, but it's not like the club didn't try to give him that opportunity. They waited a pretty long time before making an injury replacement signing before doing that. They gave it time to see. They're not going to force it. And honestly, if let's say he was healthy enough to come back into the team now, would he be in a position to really help a lot? Maybe, maybe not. It's risky, and you're not going to risk anything with his knee. So it's just two different situations, unfortunately. There's just no way around it. Yep. Let's see. Sean says Gazan's not the problem. He says we got 99 problems, and Gazan ain't one. Very nice. Nicely done. Chris Rabel says, not sure if Joseph can save this team. No, not entirely, but that's the thing, is the biggest loss you've had this season, there's no way around it, is Joseph Martinez. The season is different if you have Joseph. Everything plays out differently if you have Joseph. You didn't. And then other things have happened as well. So it's not like you can go back in time and protect his knee and then nothing else happens or things happen exactly the same. You have no way to know. Does Frank de Boer's performances in the MLS's back tournament, are they better with Joseph? Yeah, I think so. Does that mean you don't get to the point where he leaves or the team asks him to leave or he accepts leaving or it's mutual or however we're playing it this week in the media? Maybe so. Maybe not. No way to know. But the team would be better with Joseph. There's no way around that. How much better? We don't know. That's the thing, we don't know, because we are not. I don't have a crystal ball around anywhere, and I don't have a magic 8-ball, so we're just kind of stuck. Shiva says about Vela, no, because LAFC was doing fine without Vela. Now they're just better. Fine is not the way I would have put it, and kind of the same conversation a little bit. Vela makes their attack better, but he doesn't fix their defense. The thing that could help LAFC the most is that they finally addressed their back line. It's still not 100% because Tristan Blackman just came back into the team on this one too, and they've needed him. But they finally addressed their back line by bringing Jesus Murillo in on loan from Independiente Medellin. It wouldn't have mattered if they brought Vela back or not if they hadn't gotten somebody to get better on the back line. Now, yesterday, too, they get the benefit of playing a man up for 65 minutes. That's kind of nice. You can glow over stats all day. This is the same conversation about Atlanta and Chicago in 2017, where it's like Atlanta set all these possession records. Well, they had a man advantage for, all but 4 minutes of the match. So, yes, they should set those records. Atuesta should have a great game on the ball. El Munir should be able to get forward well. Those things should happen. Game played out like you would expect. LAFC will be better more because of Murillo than Vela. They were hanging around without Vela and scoring a lot of goals. But their defense was horrible. Vela doesn't fix the defense. Murillo can, and we'll see how he performs. That is what could elevate LAFC more than anything for me. It is. Chris is still going back and forth with people about Brad Gazan and that first goal. And, hey, I said it. I said it on Saturday night. I've said it this morning. It's a goal that Brad Gazan can't give up. There's no way around it. I mean, he's got to make that save. That's true. There's nothing to do with that. That doesn't mean he's a bad goalkeeper all of a sudden either, though. You look at his numbers this year. You look at the records he set during his time here. No, one bad play doesn't wash that away. But, yes, it is a bad play. It gives up a goal in a time where you can't give it up, and it gives up a soft goal. Can't give that up. Just can't. Karangal H. Sorry. I was trying to read, and it's small. What's the benefit of getting in if we're going to play the way we're playing? I mean, the benefit of getting in is because you get more games and more training time, period. What's the benefit of not getting in? None. Like that's the whole point is there's this conversation about, well, they shouldn't want to get into the playoffs. There's no benefit to not getting into the playoffs. I think the benefit is maybe a little bit of allocation money, not enough to actually make any big changes, and nothing else. A higher draft pick, which is nothing else. So there's no benefit to not getting in. So if you can get in, get in. I mean, there's really not a whole lot of a conversation to it. It's just, if you can get in, you get in. If you play yourself in, you play yourself in. You don't sacrifice the future to get into the playoffs. No, they're not doing that. There's nothing that they're doing that is along those lines. They didn't rush Joseph back to try to get into the playoffs as an 8 or 9 seed. That's good. You get in, you get in. There's no benefit to not getting in. Matt Wagner says, where did you see us struggle the most in the first half? What was your biggest disappointment in the match? The biggest disappointment is you didn't get a goal to show for the work you put in the first 60 minutes. First 60 minutes, you had 5 shots on goal. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. Your best chance was the half volley from Marcelino Moreno that forced a big save. You had some that were on goal but weren't really all that dangerous. But you had 5 shots to their 1. First 60 was good. You got to get something to show for it. That's my biggest disappointment is you didn't get a goal to show for it. You created some chances. Yes, you could have created more. You can always create more. You should be creating more. On paper, absolutely. In reality, where you've had limited training sessions with this group, it shows at times. They're not on the same page. They're figuring it out in the match. Barco and Bello trying to figure each other out because they haven't played together all that much, period, but not that much in a long time. Moreno and Barco haven't played together but a few minutes here and there in a few training sessions. Same with Jurgen Damm. You're trying to figure all of that out on the fly. Kubo Torres did not help you enough up top either. I thought he had a poor day. But you still had 5 shots on target in the first 60. You got to find one to show for it there. Because if you don't, what happens? You bring in this kind of situation that can happen. A bad goal here, bad goal there. I mean, we'll go back, and I think some people were more upset by the last goal. I'm not. I'm upset you didn't get a goal first. Because you get a goal first, I think it's game over. You get a goal in the first 60 to show for it, it's game over. I don't see DC coming back in that scenario. But you concede. Then you have to sell out and push everything forward and go trying to find a goal. And you get it. But we've seen this so many times. It is very difficult when you make those substitutions and you change the way you're playing to then rechange and try to get back into playing somebody straight up. You can't because of the subs you've made, and you can get caught. Atlanta got caught looking for a second, which, look, they needed to go for it. They needed 3 points here more than anything. But now you're going to come back to the idea that you gave up a bad goal at the end in a situation where you shouldn't have had that break go against you. You could have had a point here. You could have had a point against Toronto. That's just the last two matches. You go back through other games where there could have been a point here, there could have been a point there, and that's going to keep you from the playoffs. Ultimately, I think it's going to be close enough to where you're going to start to look back and say, man, a little bit here managed better, a little bit here managed better, a little bit here you get a better performance. Then we're having a different conversation, and this team's going into the postseason. The disappointment for me, though, was not getting a goal in the first 60. I don't think they really struggled in the first half outside of that final third, outside of Cubo Torres and incorporating him and making him have some dangerous opportunities. Really, the chances were coming from elsewhere, and you need more from your number 9. So if there's a struggle in the first half, that's it, was connecting to your number 9. But in general, it was the first 60 minutes with what you put in, what you created, and no goals to show for it.
El Mataflow, you've addressed most of this, and there's stuff here at the end that's a little different. Says, what are your takes on what we should do for the rest of the season? Play the kids for some meaningful minutes or new signings to build cohesion, or is everyone just fighting for a chance to be here in Atlanta next season?
I think everybody's fighting for a chance to be here next season, to be perfectly honest. I don't think you want to take that away from people. I think you're playing the best lineup you can on Wednesday, and you're doing it again on Sunday, and you're doing it again next week. Now, that could mean you're playing some young players, but you're not going to play a healthy Tyler Wolff over a healthy Jurgen Damm, for example. You're not going to do that right now. There's no point in doing that, other than just giving Tyler Wolff some minutes. Is that going to really change his development right now? No. A few minutes here and a few minutes there is not going to do that. You've got to push to try to get in. You have to. So you play the best lineup you can. Probably going to be somewhat rotated on Wednesday. Probably some rotation from that on Sunday because of the schedule. But I don't think you're selling out and playing the kids here. I think it is guys like Mo Adams who has stepped up in a massive way. Mo was our man of the match on radio. Honestly, and when you dig into the numbers, I mean, your best 3 performers in this match were Mo Adams, Miles Robinson, and Fernando Meza. And look, I know it's very easy to pick on Miles Robinson, but the conversation that has gotten going around Miles Robinson, and this is national and local, I just disagree. Completely disagree. He's had some really... I mean, we were just talking about it going into the match, about how good he's been playing lately. And he's been looking fit, and he's been looking comfortable, and he looks like the old Miles Robinson. This game doesn't wash that away. So let's again be careful about trying to take everything out of moments in matches and have it define players. That can be a little much. But in general, I think this is guys playing for futures. I mean, playing at a minimum, playing for standing in the depth chart. Has Hosechu passed Heinemann? Don't know. But those two are going to be fighting it out. Adams, is he showing that he could be a possibility in the lineup next year? Yeah, he is. You still are going to be looking to bring some competition. But Mo Adams has stepped up here lately. Eric Remedi, does he get another opportunity in one of these last 3 games? I think he probably does because of the amount of games in a short period of time. The pressure will be on him to have a better performance. The pressure is going to be on Cubo Torres because I don't know what the length of his contract is, but he was out of contract when Atlanta signed him. So he hasn't produced. He hasn't scored. He's been on the end of some good chances. His XG is pretty good for the amount of minutes he's played. He hasn't found the back of the net. That's his job. So the pressure's on him. The pressure's probably on Adam John because he came in as a reserve here. Is he going to come back as a reserve here next year? The pressure's on a lot of these players. So I think it's far more the latter of what Monteflo said. It's down to guys who are playing for their futures in the club or their future positioning on the depth chart and how they're seen going into the offseason and the transfer window.
Chris Hutchison says, forget the playoffs for this year. Continue to determine who will be staying, who will be replaced, and who will replace him, and take your time, but get the coaching hire right and get him in place by the end of the year.
Okay, that's a variety of stuff. I think we've covered the first part of it. I mean, you're not playing people just to play people right now. You're still fielding the best lineup you can. But that pressure is still on to decide who's going to be here, who's not going to be here. You can do both there. And you need to do both because you need people to play under pressure. So if you basically make it clear, and I do think that if you started a Tyler Wolff out of nowhere in one of these games, or a George Campbell who we haven't seen, that is basically saying, we don't care if we get in or not. People sense that and feel that, and fellow players feel that when that lineup comes out. I don't know how well that plays. Who knows? Maybe because they're fresh, it works. I don't know. But in general, I think you need to put the pressure on the players to get the best performances and to figure those things out. And you put the pressure on them by saying, we are gunning for a playoff spot. We need results in these last 3 games, period. The coach hire, you have to get it right. I mean, there's just no way around it. You have to get that right, and by the end of the year would be fine. I think it would be fine. The transfer window opens in January. The coach is going to come in and not set the transfer agenda. The coach is going to have input. The coach that you hire would hopefully impress by knowing the roster and would know what positions they want to upgrade and would know any potential players they might have a connection to and say, hey, we need a player in this position. I've worked with this guy before. Check on them. They could be available, et cetera, et cetera. That's where you're at. By the end of the year, it would be fine. You need to get the hire right. That is the biggest hire out there for this club going forward. That's it. Bigger than any player, it's the managerial hire. And by the end of the year, would be completely fine.
Let's see. And John Nason, along those same lines with the coaching hire, says, jump in the time machine for a moment. Okay. Knowing the club has still not appointed a new coach, any chance you think they would have been better off hanging on to Frank DeBoer through the season that is 2020? I'll hang up and listen.
Yeah, it's one that people have started to come back around on now, which is really entertaining. Because, man, everybody was ready to make that change, and now it's like, oh, well, maybe we made it too soon. 2020 is a crazy year, so it's easy to play the time machine game at this point. Coming out of the Orlando tournament, I am led to believe from everything that we have read and everything that has been said that there were bigger issues than just the results. So if that's the case, then yeah, you had to make the move. You had to do what you did. You had to have the conversation. Everybody agrees, okay, cool, we're both going to move on here. Because if the issues were not just tactical, player selection, etc., and there were issues behind the scenes and players didn't want to play for him or didn't respect him or didn't buy in or whatever, that's not going to change overnight. So if that was where it was, then that's the change you had to make. So no, I don't think it would have necessarily meant a whole lot if it was as messed up as it sounds like it could have been. Not in that locker room, so I couldn't tell you. But that's the story that has not been refuted anywhere. I think Frank kind of said that he didn't think it was that bad, but it sounds like it was, and they didn't think it was going to change. So, what point does it make to keep him other than keeping some continuity? But if the continuity is not good, why do you want to keep that? So that's the reasoning. I just don't think it was down to results because that's such a short sample size in that tournament. Coming off of a long break, coming off of no games to prepare, coming off of all that, I don't think the tournament results, 3 games, determined it. I don't think 5 games without Joseph Martinez determined it. I do think that from a tactical perspective, Frank not figuring out and sticking with a solution to Joseph Martinez's absence up top is one thing that didn't help. It didn't transmit confidence to any of the players involved. I mean, if it was, because we'll go back, I mean, it was Adam John against Cincinnati, it was Pity Martinez up top against Club America, it was Manuel Castro against New York Red Bulls months later, but still, and then it was back to Adam John for 45, or not even 45, because you had the red card, so then you kind of throw that one out. It just didn't have any consistency in what the solution was going to be. That's the biggest tactical issue for me under DeBoer. But I think the problems were deeper, so I don't think they would have gotten better by keeping him.
Yeah, John followed up by saying his opinion was no because of the culture, et cetera, but would have definitely tried to get a new coach in place ASAP, which wasn't ever going to be easy.
Yeah, and we don't know that story, to be perfectly honest. If you would have done it ASAP, then you would have been dealing with whoever was available at the time. And I don't think there were a ton of valid options. And then just getting them into the country and everything to go with that, we don't know what that process would have looked like. I mean, the Red Bulls still don't have Struber in the country yet. So, I don't know. I also don't think Stephen Glass has done a poor job. I think past all that, what Stephen Glass has had to deal with. Pity Martinez transfer, Jurgen Damm getting him fit and then him getting injured again, Kubo Torres coming in, same thing, Ezequiel Barco's injury, then all the smaller injuries and just fatigue that you've had to deal with. He's had a lot to juggle. And no, he doesn't have the same standing because he's not the full-time manager. He's the interim manager. So that adds to his challenge. His team is far more difficult to beat now than they were. I think he righted that ship. He hasn't solved the attack. And the talent's there at this point, to me. Now, the talent hasn't played together very much. And I think it's fair to say some of the talent isn't performing. And, I mean, I think you have to look at Kubo Torres. You know, you brought him in to get goals. He scored goals in this league. He hasn't gotten a goal. You know, there's only so much you can do if you're not getting the performances. So, that's it.
Shiva is in on the Twitter side.
Shiva's everywhere. I like it.
She is. It's a multi-dimensional Shiva.
Yes.
I've had 24 hours to cool down and stop being mad. And then she posts the emoji that we associate with Joseph Martinez, the angry red-faced emoji.
Yes.
We can dissect and analyze 2020 all we want. But for me, it's what we do moving forward. Yes, Joseph is back next year, but he can't be the only solution. I want to see how the front office and the team responds in 2021. We can't have another 2020.
I'm not going to argue about the front office anymore because, look, the way the results have gone, there's nothing else for me to argue about at this point because people have made up their minds. I look at the talent that is on this team, and yes, I think that the talent should be getting more results. I also look at how available the talent has been this season, and it has been far, far inconsistent for them to be available on a regular basis. That's been a challenge. But yeah, I think this team is talented. I like the Brooks Lennon addition. I like the Mateos Hosetu addition. I don't know who plays over Hosetu or Heinemann, and that's going to be an interesting one to see how it gets solved. I don't think you can play them both with Marcelino Moreno in. It might be one of your sources.
Yeah, really? We'll get to the answer. See if they have an answer to that question.
Yeah, we'll see if one of your sources can contribute here, John. No, I don't have as big of an issue with the talent, but like I've said before, I think they need a 6. I think they have to figure out the Barco long-term situation. Can you make a move in January? Is there going to be a buyer? Is there going to be the right price? Is there going to be an acceptable price? We'll have to find that out. And then can you go out and get somebody else in? How you manage the U22 initiative, because it looks like you'll have 2 extra spots. You'll be adding Eric Lopez, but 2 more on top of that. There are things for the front office to do, but putting everything in 2020 on the front office, I think, is a scapegoat look to me. And that's what it's felt like a lot of this conversation is you're looking for scapegoats. When I still think, and I will always have the opinion, that the biggest issue this season has been the lack of Joseph Martinez, period. Mm-hmm. And it's just not going to be something that you can easily solve because he was out in 2017, the results took a dip. He was out in 2018, the results took a dip. He was out in 2019, the results took a dip. That happens. Can you develop a forward that can play in a similar way? You're not expecting them to score at the same rate. Otherwise, they'd be playing somewhere and scoring at that rate. But can you find somebody that plays in a similar way to give you a more seamless replacement? That's the thing I think you need. The Adam John addition is fine because I think he gives you something different, which you need at times. But you're thinking about that more in the case of game-by-game individual situations, potentially bringing him on late in a game for Joseph to play off of him if you have to get direct. Those sorts of things. You're not bringing him in to be the replacement because you play differently. And I think what we've seen this season is a team that's become far more reliant on crossing than usual. I think when the team got reliant on crossing in the past, it was not good when it was cross after cross after cross. You need more of the other play, but you've gotten more reliant on that because of the types of players you have. You need somebody who can replicate Joseph's style, if not his production, and that's going to be an issue. And it's been an issue from day one. It's always an issue. It's a hard thing to do because he's not an easy player to replicate, and he's never going to be an easy player to replace. But I think the season is far different if you have him. Without him, everything else is magnified because you're not a scary team going forward.
Couple of questions from Nathan Pugh in early this morning. One, I'm wondering if United or Falcons would benefit more from Trevor Lawrence.
I don't know how Trevor Lawrence's footwork is.
Yeah, I mean, his distribution is good, but that would mean he'd have to be a goalie.
Yes.
And Nathan's second question, he says, also, if you could headlock someone inside the penalty area, McGuillotine style, and get away with it, who would it be? Hashtag on par reaction Monday.
I think about that. It probably changes on a regular basis.
So who would it be this week, I guess?
I don't think there's anybody I want to strangle in the penalty area and get away with it. I think most often it's somebody in an Orlando jersey. Usually Dom Dwyer because he'll drive you crazy. But, that's the usual. That's probably the fallback.
Yeah, Dom Dwyer's a pretty good one. I was trying to burn through the week that was and see if there was anyone in particular that would fit that dynamic. I'll have to put that one in my thinking cap and see. McGuillotine, I'll write that down and I'll think about it for the rest of the show.
Clayton Poss asked on the Twitch pitch, my question is the losses this year, is it from talent or from coaching? Is the offseason going to be an overhaul of players coming in or out, or is a manager going to make these players exponentially better? It's a good question because how much overhaul will you see? When you have a new manager, you typically see some. That's fairly standard. The thing we don't know is who is up for a contract option decision, who is out of contract at the end of the year, or which players are angling for a move themselves. We don't know that, so it's hard to guess how much overhaul you're going to see without knowing that. Because I don't think the transfer market is going to be a great one to sell in January. It just doesn't seem like that's going to change unless, and I don't see it coming, unless there's a dramatic change worldwide with COVID-19. Because if teams are able to get fans back in the stands and they feel like, okay, our revenue is going to return here, we're going to bounce back, all right, we can spend if the money's right and the deal is good. Right now, I think it's more of we can't spend on anything that's not a sure thing. And that's going to be a challenge. Now, the internal league market could be good. Teams could be looking to make deals, looking to make trades, things like that. So that's a different conversation. I don't think you're going to sell a whole lot to South America. Who knows? If Saudi Arabia keeps wanting to spend money like they have been lately, maybe they come in for more players. Who knows?
Yeah.
But the market's going to be weird. So it's down to who would be in demand, who's out of contract, and then how much room are you going to have to work with? Because, we've had these conversations this year about the cap. We don't know where they are up against the cap, but they're not good with the cap. They're spending pretty much to the max of what they can spend. So if they're going to go out and spend, they've got to clear room to spend. They've got to make some room to be able to do that, which would mean some players would have to leave. In terms of the losses, is it down to talent or coaching? I don't think it's one or the other. You've had two coaches, which is always difficult. Stephen Glass talked about it on Thursday. I thought it was a really important point, and I jumped into it on stoppage time, and I talked about it on the run-up as well, where he said that the team was too open when he took over. And even at the beginning of his time here, they were too open. One reason they were too open was they were trying to find goals because there weren't any goals before that. But they were taking too many unnecessary chances and giving up bad goals the other way. Transition, which is something that we talked about a lot here, was very poor. That's better. That's improved. You still haven't found the goals. And that, I look at it that way. I look at it as you have the talent to score the goals. The talent hasn't always been available due to injury, due to incorporating them into the team. The coaching side, in my opinion, Stephen Glass has made this team better defensively and better in transition than they were. That was something that had to be corrected. It's not, I don't think you're pinning it on one thing. That's why when we talk about scapegoats, I don't think it's easy to say, this is it right here. It's this problem. This is even Joseph's injury is the biggest issue. And if I could only pick one, that's the one I'm pointing to. But it's not the only thing that's wrong, because Joseph Martinez's presence didn't change how bad this team was in transition this season, early on, and then after he was hurt. He's not involved in that phase of play that much. Now, does his absence change it because you're trying to get more numbers forward to make up for him? Maybe so, but it still doesn't. It doesn't make you more organized to have him on the field when you transition to defense. So that was an issue. That's been corrected. That's a good thing, but that doesn't fix the goal-scoring issue without him. He's the biggest issue, but there's lots of different things, some of them out of your control. That's the problem, is injuries are out of your control. The way 2020, the way the schedule has gone, the way the stops and starts have gone, that stuff's out of your control. They haven't made the most of it, but you look around the league, the results are inconsistent in general. You know, Atlanta has handled this worse than others. They've also had the biggest absence than others. And it shows. But there's not one issue to me. There just isn't.
Nick Brawley's in this morning, and he says, to me, it seems like our off-the-ball runs going forward have become too predictable at times. Is this down to the decision-making of the players? I just want to see us finding new ways to break the lines, and it seems like we're stuck when it comes to ideas.
It's down to a few things. It's down to the fact that they haven't played together very much. So when you're playing with somebody that you don't know, like if you're playing in a pickup game, for example, and you don't see a whole lot of movement off the ball, and what you see is pretty basic because you're going back to basics with somebody you don't know. You're not going to make some unexpected movement off the ball and expect a player you've never played with to pick it up. So you've got to be kind of simple. That's part of it. Also, you haven't had, because you had to fix the transition moments, because I totally agree it was the right thing to focus on. If you were not better defensively, there was no way you were going to get through. And better in those transition moments. There was no way you were going to get into the playoffs. You had to fix that. But when you have limited training time, you limit some of the work in terms of building patterns and building this movement. I don't even know if that would have helped, because Pity Martinez left, you brought in Marcelino Moreno, you still wouldn't have had a lot of training sessions with him, period. So would it have been better? Barco's been out. Would it have been better if you'd been able to put more of an emphasis on it? I don't know, because you've still had players in and out. So I think it's down to that. It's not talent, because movement off the ball and patterns of play are different than talent. Those are two different conversations. But you haven't been able to generate those. Partially due to a focus that needed to be elsewhere, and I thought what Stephen Glass said in the media availability Thursday highlighted that point. But also the in and out nature of the attacking players in this team right now. I mean, it's just, look at the group you had on Saturday, and you had a player in Marcelino Moreno making his second start. You had a player in Cubo Torres making his fourth start, I think. Jurgen Damm was making his fourth start, and Ezequiel Barco was making his ninth start. That was your attacking front four. Even if you want to include Hosechu into that, he was making his fourth or fifth start. So the movement off the ball isn't great. because of that. Now, it hasn't been great all year, but you've had this in and out all year of different players moving in and out. So it's frustrating, but those things do factor into it.
Matt Wagner's in on the Twitter side as well this morning. So we have a multi-dimensional Matt Wagner as well.
Oh, wow. Everybody's everywhere.
Hey, we'll take it. Matt was looking at something that Felipe released at the top of the last hour. According to reports out of Brazil, Palmeiras is opening talks with Gabriel Heinze.
That's been going on for a while, yeah.
Matt says, thoughts on passing on Heinze? If this is true, would he have been a good fit for Atlanta?
I think his mentality would have been a good fit. I think his lack of experience at big clubs could have been a detriment. Palmeiras will be the biggest club he's ever been at. Atlanta would have been the biggest club he would have been at. I know plenty of Argentines are going to fight about that because of Vélez Sarsfield, but the expectations is what I'm going on when I say big club, because Atlanta is expected to win trophies every year. Vélez Sarsfield is not expected to win trophies every year. Getting into the Sudamericana multiple times was an accomplishment for him there. That's not the expectation here. So that's different. Palmeiras, that's not the expectation. The expectation is to win things. I don't think he was a slam dunk. I think, when you're talking about slam dunks, that if they become available, this is who you're talking to. I mean, the biggest one is Pochettino, but is he interested? Probably not, because I think you probably would have already heard something by now. Outside of that, everybody's got questions. Tata Martino had questions. Frank de Boer had questions. Everybody's got questions out there that you can get. Gabriel Heinze would have had questions as well. You have to make the best decision that you can for the team. And if he's not the guy, he's not the guy. But no, I don't think it is this huge loss if he goes to Palmeiras instead. I'll be curious to see how that would work out. I don't really have all that high hopes for it, because I think Palmeiras is a crazy situation. The Brazilian league in general is a crazy situation. And if he has 5 bad games, he might lose his job. Yeah. And I don't think that's the place for him. I think he wants to go somewhere where he can build a team. That's where he should go anyway. I think that goes to his strengths.
You want me to thank somebody as we head into hour number 2?
Yes, why don't we do that? You need to thank our good friend Steve Apolinsky over in Decatur, GA.
I can do that. Apolinsky and Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network. Wrongful death and serious injury attorneys. And if this is a conversation that you need to have, you can have it with Steve and the lawyers of Apolinsky and Associates, LLC. A couple different ways. You can shoot Steve an email directly, steve at aa-legal.com. You can get a free consultation by dialing them up on your rotary phone, if you've got one of those. Maybe your touch-tone phone, you got one of those. Your cell phone, you got one of those. 404-377-9191. Or you can go to the website, aa-legal.com. When you hit your enter key, your return key, your advance key on your device, large or small, and you get to that home screen, pop-up window pops up, because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up.
Really?
Could be Steve at the other... I know, strange thing. Could be Steve at the other end of that pop-up window to have the conversation with you.
Why are you floating rumors out there like that?
Because it's a Monday, and I can do that.
Fair enough.
So if it's Steve, you can have a conversation with Steve. If it's someone appointed by Steve, you can have a conversation with that individual. 24/7, 365 and a quarter. Thank you, Chris Hutchison. Wrongful death and serious injury attorneys, over 30 years of experience, over $40 million of judgments for their clients in Georgia and Alabama, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, it is only one choice that needs to be made. Apolinsky and Associates, LLC. The website is aa-legal.com.
Yeah, I screwed you up because I messed with you a little bit there.
No, I was either putting in too much information or I wasn't putting in enough information. I figured out who my guillotine would be. It would have to be Screaming Will Johnson from Orlando.
Man, okay, fair enough. He's not doing anything anymore, though. Why you gotta pick on him now?
Because I can, and it's a Monday.
All right. Wow, that's harsh.
Chris Ashley, starting hour number 2. He has a motion to the floor, sir.
Okay.
He's wanting to cancel hashtag Overreaction Monday and turn this into hashtag Optimism Monday and the beginning of Championship Week, where we can all celebrate at GVL Charm's pursuit of a cup. Hashtag think happy thoughts.
I think that's an overreaction, Chris. That's the whole point. Overreaction Monday is not just to come and be negative. This season has been more negative. It was honestly a joke about being that when it started, because it would feel like there'd be an overreaction about all kinds of little random things in games. So it is said with tongue in cheek, and I think Chris might be having a little bit of an overreaction to the week ahead. Just saying.
Ellen Reynolds is in, and she was in after the match, and she says, I know that they aren't mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, but I've pretty much lost all hope. Gutted.
Yeah, I mean, that was how important this game was. That we said it coming in, it was the same coming out. Now, I mean, you got some results in the league that help you. I mean, we look at the table, and we're going to double-check it because MLS's website sometimes is a little strange. It shouldn't be, but it is. You are 2 points out of a playoff spot. Chicago has a game in hand on you. They are 2 points ahead of you. They are between you and the playoff spot. You're 1 point ahead of D.C. You're 3 points ahead of Cincinnati. Now, you are also 4 points out of ninth with Montreal, and you're on the same number of games. You have 9 points left on the table. Chicago has 12. Nashville has 12. I think Nashville is, with 12 points on the table and at 25, they're good. So Chicago could catch them, but then that becomes a different conversation. You could possibly catch Montreal. You're probably fighting for the 10 spot. Okay. You've got 2 games on the road, 1 at home. That's why this home game was so important. I mean, none of that's changed. Miami and Chicago are 2 points ahead of you. Chicago's got the extra game. I don't know if that necessarily helps them because it's thrown into the midweek during decision day. I thought this game was their biggest chance to get 3, and they only got 1. They gave up a goal to the Red Bulls late. They drew 2-2. Montreal lost, so that kept them within shouting distance. Now, Miami won. They beat Orlando, and Leandro Gonzalez-Perez had the winner on a corner kick. The first goal that Miami scored was one of the most ridiculous goals I've seen in years. It was 5 different shots that were blocked and deflected, and it ends up finding the back of the net somehow on an own goal from Janssen that was just absurd. But Miami gets 3 points for that. D.C. obviously got 3 points. Cincinnati did not, and they were not happy about the situation. They felt like a ball was out when it was not ruled as out, and that led to a corner kick, and that led to... they thought that it came off of a Minnesota player. It should have been a goal kick. It wasn't a goal kick. They are now in a bad spot, and that was what decided the game. That was the 1-0. So that's what happened. You're 2 points out. It's doable. It's not easy. It's harder now because one of your easier games is gone, and you didn't get enough out of it. It's just that simple. But Miami, what they have left, they go to Dallas, they go to Toronto, and they host Cincinnati on the last day. So 3 points you would think they're going to get. The other ones, they might only get 3 points. That's not a crazy thing to look at and think. Chicago, and one of the craziest things is Miami doesn't play Chicago all season. So that is just part of it that is strange with all of this, and those are 2 teams that are battling it out. Chicago, what they have left is they go to Philadelphia, who wrecked Toronto over the weekend. They go to Nashville. They go to Minnesota on Wednesday, November 4th, and then they host NYC the last day. They might not be favored in any of those. Mm-hmm. Are they going to pick up more than 3 points in these 4 games? If they do, they got it. But I think they have an even harder road to picking up these points than Miami does. You've got 3 that you should bank, but again, you should have banked 3 on the weekend. That it just keeps pointing back to how big that loss is going to end up being. But no, it's not done yet because Chicago might not get any more points. Or they might get 1 here or 1 there. Miami might only get 3. You can catch them, but you got to win against Orlando or Columbus on decision day. There's no other pathway.
Okay, now Rich Ransom is in this morning, and he starts his tweet in all caps. So I'm going to have to.
He should be in all caps. He should be in all caps for days.
Well, I'm going to try to properly represent his response in the all caps section before going to his normal caps and lowercase response in the remainder of the tweet.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I can get this done right. Top of the table, baby! Is that enough whys and exclamation points, Rich? You'll have to help me out on that. He says,
Union... Very good move.
He is. Union ran TFC off the field. Great to be in the stadium to see it. If Jim Curtin isn't MLS Coach of the Year, it's a conspiracy with 4 exclamation points. #dupe.
I feel like I've been telling you all this. about Philadelphia and Toronto, honestly. Toronto has not looked good in their last few wins. Not looked all that convincing. And they didn't against Atlanta. That should have been a point. At a minimum, it should have been a point. Again, another one you'll add to the list of coulda, shoulda, wouldas. But Philadelphia, best team in the league. And it's crazy after all the Supporter Shield stuff where Toronto was very upset that now it looks like Philadelphia might win the thing. Philadelphia is the best team in the league. They have been for a while. And this was a statement win. Good for them.
Early Halloween candy for midweek has Philadelphia at a -115 going up against Chicago, who's at a +310.
That feels about right.
So that was Rich Ransom, and I'm sure that Rich will continue to let us know how things are going to be in all caps for the remainder of the day, if not the remainder of the week, as he should. Nick Brawley's back in. He says, knowing 2020 we could beat Orlando, lose to Cincinnati, then beat Columbus to make the playoffs. Nothing surprises me at this point, and anything is possible.
That is true. That's how crazy this thing can be. You can absolutely beat Orlando. You can beat Columbus. You can win all 3 of these games. But you have to do some things that we haven't seen them do in a while. I mean, that's just, like, they have the talent to win these games. They have not shown the ability to play at a level to win 2 of those games. They still should beat Cincinnati, just like they should have beat DC. They can, but they're going to have to do something we haven't seen much lately. And that's what it's going to come down to. On the Twitch pitch, as we try to get caught up, and I know I'm going way back on y'all because we've been bouncing around a lot today. Karen Gell says, and tell me, please, how you want that to be, because I'm kind of making something up with it. So if I'm butchering it, give it to me phonetically. But more on the give Alec Can a shot after Brad Gazan's flub on the goal, on the free kick. I don't know. I don't know. It was a bad goal to give up. I mean, I just keep coming back to that. It's a bad goal to give up. Does it mean you lose your starting spot for good? No. Does it mean, maybe you lose your spot for a game? Probably not, because he's one of your captains. He's your captain. He's done so much for this club in so many different ways. But yeah, that's one you can't give up. There's just no way around it. Ricky says Orlando ain't letting up on us. They want to drive the nail into our coffin. I'm sure they do, but they couldn't do it at home last time, so I'm just saying. And they didn't look great against Miami either this weekend. I'm just saying. Are we getting into that point, and it's later than usual, where Orlando starts to have the crazy pressure and can't deal with it, and bad thoughts creeping into their head and all that kind of stuff? We'll find out on Wednesday. They absolutely do want to drive the nail in the coffin. They can't. I don't think there's any combination of results from Wednesday that would completely eliminate Atlanta, so they don't get that opportunity. But yeah, they want to be the ones that make it almost impossible. They absolutely do. But also, Atlanta wants to be the ones to ruin Orlando's fun time. And they did earlier with a draw. They need to do it with 3 points in this one. Clayton Poss says, am I in the minority when it comes to Meza being good? And Ricky says, Ricky's right there with Clayton. There shouldn't be an issue with this. I don't know why there was an issue to begin with. It didn't make any sense. Meza had a bad MLS's back tournament. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of good players around the league who had bad MLS's back tournaments. And then he got hurt. And since he's been back, he's been good. He's a good player. He was very good early this season. The question on that is going to come down to, where do you see Franco Escobar long-term with this team? Do you see him as a center back? If you do, you definitely see Miles Robinson as a center back next to him. No matter what anybody has to say about that one, you do. And what does that leave? Do you go to 3 center backs? Or do you not have Meza starting? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I don't know. I like Escobar at center back a lot. There is a rumor out there that Tijuana has a percentage of his player pass, which is a little more complicated than having a percentage of a sell-on fee. It sounds like maybe in the transfer agreement there was some kind of a potential return clause to go to Tijuana. Remember, he was with Necaxa. Tijuana picked up his rights in Mexico. They made the transfer for him to come to Atlanta. They reportedly have some way to bring him to Tijuana. They have been a bad defensive team this year, so they would want to be upgrading there. He's played well in Liga MX. And Tijuana might be changing managers. Their manager's under pressure because it doesn't look like they're going to make the playoffs. So this was after they had a decent season in the Clausura, and now in the Apertura it's been very bad. So could he go? Potentially, depending on what the numbers look like and depending on what kind of clauses there are in the deals that we just don't know about. But no, he's been good. I don't have a problem with that. There shouldn't be a minority in that him being good. Christopher Abel is very negative today. It's okay, Chris. Hopes Orlando wins 5-0 so they can go ahead and officially fire Glassy. I haven't been a fan of his tactics. He's not hired, Chris. I don't know where the confusion has been on this. He is the interim manager. He doesn't have a first-team job with the team. He is the second-team manager. He will go back to that job, and he should go back to that job. And anybody who thinks otherwise, I have to thoroughly disagree with you. He's the interim. There's no firing. There's nothing there. He's not the first-team manager. So I don't know. I don't know how that one's got kind of spread, but that's not even how things would work. So, I mean, I don't know. But no, there's no benefit to losing 5-0. Again, just like there's no benefit to missing the playoffs, there was no benefit to the U.S. men's national team missing the World Cup in 2018, which some people tried to sell it as. No, it's not good when you lose. It's never good when you lose. So, but there's no firing. He's the interim. He's not the first-team manager. So, Jason Nick says, Gallagher is better than a healthy Kubo. I don't disagree with you. I don't know about a healthy Kubo, but we haven't seen a healthy Kubo. I don't disagree with you in that right now Gallagher's better than Kubo Torres. They're very different, though. Gallagher's not a traditional number 9, and I don't think he's played his best as a number 9. I think he's played his best coming off of the wing. And if you have Barco and you have Jurgen Damm, Gallagher would play as the number 9. And you're going to have to find a way to make it work. And does it play a little bit like a false 9 or something because he's going to drift and he's going to go out wide? That's fine, but then you're not looking to put in a bunch of crosses and you have to change the way you attack. If you can make all that happen and you got a training session today, then okay, go for it. Otherwise, I think if you're not going with Kubo, it's Adam John up top that's the better option. Now, could you go to a situation where you play Gallagher on the wing and you play Barco as a number 10 with Moreno, who has more defensive responsibilities than he's had? You could. It's going to be risky, like the attack-minded lineup you had on Saturday was risky, but you could do that to shake up the attack. I don't necessarily hate the idea because you know Barco's going to give you defensive effort in the middle, and you know Moreno is. If Moreno's there. And if Moreno's not there because he can't turn around and play again on Wednesday, then it's a different conversation. And maybe that is how you get Gallagher on the field. But I don't think it's Gallagher as the 9. I don't think that's worked as well. I like him better on one of the flanks. I'm trying to catch up on the Twitch pitch. Lots of talk about Kubo. And, yeah, he was not good. He was just not good. Sean Vergara says rather have John and Gallagher, which is kind of the way I just said it. And some of this depends on Barco, Moreno, Damm, if they're able to turn around and go again. Barco and Moreno played 90. Damm played, 60, 65? No, he played 70. It was at 70 marks where Gallagher came on. Doesn't matter. Don't spend 5 minutes looking it up. I can see the look on your
68,
face.
you had it.
68. You looked it up pretty quick that time. Good job.
I had it up on a tab.
So you didn't have to look it up. There we go. Got it. Okay. Shiva says, that's my concern. Is a new coach and Joseph going to make us that much better? Look, LAFC just got Vela back, and they have been in the playoff race since day one. The Western Conference isn't as good either. Mm-hmm. Let's not miss that one either. But I don't know. I can say how I feel, and nothing's changed with it, but I'm saying the same things over and over again. The narrative is you have to do 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 different moves to fix this roster that is so damaged and so wrong and all these different things. And, I mean, if all that's the case, then just chuck it, and it's a rebuild. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, no, I don't think that's the case. I think having a manager who is here for the long haul will help. The interim manager, Stephen Glass, can only do so much because he's the interim. A manager here for the long haul is a good thing, a great thing. A manager can make a huge difference. We've seen that. Oscar Pereja, Orlando, prime example. Getting somebody who can find the back of the net, getting somebody that opposing defenses fear up top can absolutely change things in a huge way. Carlos Vela and Joseph Martinez and their effect on their teams, it's not the same. It's not the same at all. And if LAFC, what they're going to have to figure out is how to get the best out of the players they have, because you can't play, in my opinion, Vela, Rossi, Rodriguez, and BWP and be anything remotely secure defensively. You're going to have to win games 5-4.
Yeah.
That works to a point. I don't think that wins you a championship. And that's what they're judged by. That's what they should be judged by. Are they going to win a championship? I don't think they look like a championship team. So then who do you sacrifice? Do you play Vela as the 9 ahead of BWP? I don't think that's the best way to get the best out of him. Do you play him out wide instead of Brian Rodriguez? Because you're not sitting Rossi. Maybe. That's probably the one. But then, I mean, what's the point with Brian Rodriguez? You should have sold him if you had offers, like you reportedly did in the summer. Yeah. But if you didn't know when Vela was coming back, fine. I think Vela's going to be coming off the bench for a little while anyway. And if that's the way they use him for a while here, okay, that makes sense. Use him coming off the bench, use him in games to spell people. But no, I'll be curious to see what they look like. Anyway, when it comes down to Atlanta, getting Joseph and getting a manager would make a huge difference. It would, because you're not getting blown out in games this year. That's where I keep pushing back, and that's where I get frustrated. Your record is not good. That's true. You've conceded 24 goals in 20 games. You look at the teams around you from 9 down. Montreal's conceded 39 goals. Miami 30. Chicago 30. DC 34. Cincinnati 31. You've conceded 6 fewer than any of them. Problem is you've scored 19 goals. DC is behind you and has been a worse team than you this season because they've conceded 10 more goals and scored the same number. You're close. That's why I do think those things would make a difference. Go back and look at the results. I mean, we'll go backwards really fast just with score lines. 2-1, 1-0, 1-1, 1-0, scoreless. You won 4-0 in DC. You lost 2-0 in Chicago. 1-0 win, 2-1 loss. 4-2 loss in Nashville, and that was where things needed to change from how open the team was playing, and they did. 2-1 loss to Miami, 1-1, scoreless, lost 3-1, 2-0 win over Nashville. That is since the MLS's back tournament. You're not scoring a ton of goals. Your defense can't win every game for you. Your defense can keep you in games. I think Joseph and a coach dramatically change this team for next season, along with a full year of Marcelino Moreno, along with a healthy Jurgen Damm, which you can't guarantee, but you would expect it, a healthy Ezequiel Barco. Those are things that will help this team. So, yeah, I do think it can be that simple, Shiva. I really do. Uncle says, front office owes the fans some progress news on the coach. They can't expect the 17s to just eat these losses without anything in return. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much they're going to give you. They're not going to give the list of candidates Doug said on Southern Fried Soccer that he has tried to find rumors, and he hasn't found any. I have not seen any. They've kept this under wraps really, really well. There is no point to not trying to look for a manager right now. So I think they are looking. I think what they are saying, and we have our list. You're working down to the final bits of it, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, all that's accurate because you're not benefiting from not doing it. So it's not out there. I don't know how much you want, and I don't know how much you can realistically expect. That would be the thing I would come down to, because they're not going to give you names of people they don't have under contract. No club's going to do that. Nobody would. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say, to be honest, because I don't know how much they actually can give you, except for if there's been interviews, if there are interviews planned, things like that where they're not naming names.
Yeah.
That's about it. Because I don't know how much else they could go into detail on it, sadly. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, I think that there just has to be the element of faith in the front office that they're doing their due diligence and they're pursuing the candidates that they want to look at, and just understand that just because there isn't any information out there doesn't mean they're not doing anything, for about 9 negatives in one sentence. Understand that, yes, they're looking at guys, and it is a global search. And, we've discussed the Stuber hire with Red Bulls as part and parcel to this, as a part of the larger discussion that we've had over months. I'm looking at it as, I understand that this is something that they're handling internally. They have their timetables set. They know who they're looking at. They know what they're looking for. And when that time is where they can sit there and say, yes, we've whittled our list down to X number of candidates, and we should have a decision in a very short period of time, or whatever frame of reference you want to use. Just have the faith that they are doing something right now, and they're going toward a conclusion.
Yep. Carringale talked about Adam John over Kubo Torres at this point. I have no problem with that. Kubo should have produced more by now. I mean, he has had injuries, yes, but he's been put in opportunities to score, and he hasn't. I put Kubo and Manuel Castro in kind of the same situation where they've been given opportunities, and if they produce, we're having a very different conversation about where Atlanta United is right now. If Manuel Castro produces in that game against Red Bulls and you win that 2-1 instead of losing it 1-0, the whole trajectory of the year could be different. If Kubo Torres has found the back of the net with some of these chances he's had, the year could be very different. They've had the chances. So I'd have no problem with Adam John over Kubo Torres at this point. But I do understand why Kubo Torres got the start here in this one. He's the first time he's able to play that long and go that far, and it just wasn't good. It just wasn't good enough. Also says, Carringale says, does Atlanta United not have enough firepower without Joseph because the squad wasn't built right? It's a tough one. You do have to look at Pity Martinez leaving. You do have to look at Ezequiel Barco being hurt. You do have to look at Jurgen Damm coming in and then getting hurt. Those are all players that you would expect to contribute in those ways. Marcelino Moreno coming in after Pity left. Those are players that you would expect to pick up some of the slack. You have to look at those individuals. You have to look at their situations as well. You've had a lot of injuries this year that have made this more difficult on top of Joseph being out. I think the talent's there. The production needs to follow. The players have to be healthy too.
Yeah. Turner Kirby is in. And knowing that today was going to be a doozy, and that's the word that he used, he said, enjoyed my first sporting event non-working since February, wasn't Atlanta United. And I log into Atlanta United Twitter literally on fire, calling Boca a terrible talent evaluator and saying we need to cut off the head of the snake in Darren Eales. And now they're claiming attendance would look like a Thrashers game if 100% were allowed.
It's easy to do that when results aren't there. I think people are forgetting what has been good about this club when this year has a lot of reasons why it hasn't been good, which is normal, which is not new. It's not, it's not only an Atlanta thing. This happens everywhere. But you run a huge risk when you have a bad year. And yes, it has been a bad year. And yes, it has been one bad year. People who try to lump 2019 into this are completely missing the plot, in my opinion. You were the third best team in the league last year. You won the Open Cup. 2019 was not a bad year. Anybody who tries to sell you that is incorrect. It's not by anything measurable. They didn't score as many goals. Yeah, they still, third best team, conference final, won an Open Cup. 2019 was not a bad year. This is a bad year. We've went through a lot of the conversation about reasons why it's a bad year. One bad year doesn't wipe away three good ones, one great one, and one really close one to winning another title and still winning trophies. One bad year doesn't do that, because what happens if you do that is then whenever there is a slip, you're changing everybody. You don't have success by changing everybody all the time. You do have to make the decisions on when to make changes. Absolutely. You did here with Frank de Boer. That was a big decision. Now you have to get the follow-up correct. That's critical. That's going to be huge. But, and I saw some of the conversation after the game. I mean, it is a little much. But that's what happens when you have a bad year. And the people that are, that are mentioned in Turner's tweet, the people that are mentioned it, they know the gig, they know the game, they know how this stuff goes. This is the life that they lead. This is the job that they're in. I do think they're being treated unfairly. I do. I really do. And we'll see what happens. Okay. So back to the Twitch pitch, because we still have a lot.
Okay.
Or do we have a lot on Twitter?
No, we're caught up on Twitter.
Oh, well then, okay.
I was ready to go. I was ready to listen. I'm sitting there like, okay, all right, ready to go. All right, what you got?
A lot of talk about Brad Kazan's distribution. There's been more issues with that this season. That's true.
Yeah.
Matt Wagner says all season Gallagher has been showing he is all in, love his work effort, and constantly tries to spark the team. That's what a player coming off the bench has to do. He's, for me, the two players that have shown the most about upping their position on the depth chart for next year, it's Mo Adams and John Gallagher.
Yep.
Those are the two that have improved their standing the most, in my opinion. Let's see. Lots of talk. Shiva about Barco can't stay healthy. That's a problem. Now a lot of questions about the injuries and is it a problem with the team's medical staff? They're all different is the problem. If they were all the same injury, I think that would be more of a valid concern. The injuries are different. So I don't know about that one. Kefsey asks, when do we get the updated salaries from the MLSPA? I'm surprised we haven't. I don't know. Normally they come out in May and September in a normal year after the windows close. This isn't a normal year. I don't know if anybody's asked them, to be perfectly honest. I don't know if any of the national media have put that question out there, but I have not seen them, and I haven't seen an update on what they would be. So we don't know. Katie with a really important point here. No small thing that we have had zero home field advantage because of COVID can really push the team forward when you have 50,000 cheering. That's absolutely true. And to back that up, I will give you Andrea Pirlo of Juventus, who said that his players should not require a slap to wake up, even if the atmosphere at the grounds is non-existent. He said he can understand why players might be influenced by playing in near-empty stadiums, but it's something they have to adapt to. This is happening worldwide. It's a problem. I mean, even Saturday, which it was great to hear people. It was great to see when the team came out, a kid down in the 100 level, like jumping up and down when the team came out. Like stuff like that was awesome. It was great to hear in the second half when you could hear people trying to rally the team. It's a small number of people in a big building. There's only so much noise that they can make. It does affect games. It absolutely. I've said it multiple times this season in games where I feel like when I'm able to lock into the game in front of me, and if it's an intense game, it's an intense game. It doesn't take anything away from me not having the fans there, but I've noticed where I feel like a game would be elevated by having the fans there. And it's not. The Red Bulls game, I think, is a prime example. There was a Miami game at home earlier where it was a good match back and forth. I think it was one of the scoreless ones, but it was a good, fun match back and forth, and there wasn't any noise, and it has an effect. You don't get that emotion. It definitely affects it. Clayton Paul says, I do not agree with our front office just forgot how to scout, but you look around the league and there are players no one has heard of scoring and making plays. Does it all come down to just the attitude of the team, or are these players just not the players to find success? That's a good point, Clayton, because you do find some teams. Look at Caden Clark, for example, who was brought into Red Bulls 2, did well. They move him up. They had to pay money to Minnesota and some stupid rules to get him. They do. And he came in and immediately performed. Now, can he sustain that? We'll have to see. It's been a short run. He's done well. Daryl Dike, people knew. He was a top draft pick, but Oscar Pareja's gotten a lot out of him. Where you've seen coaches be able to bring somebody up and work with them, like Dike's situation, for example, that's where the continuity is important. You've also done that in some ways with John Gallagher. You've done that in some ways. You've developed George Bello, and now I guess everybody's down on Bello as well. He's 18. Slow down a little bit, guys. You've developed Miles Robinson. You had developed Julian Gressel in the past. These things happen. But the flip side is, and I do think the injuries have had a massive issue, but you have a different expectation for Jurgen Damm, for Ezequiel Barco. Marcelino Moreno, I think anybody trying to be down on him, that's really unfair. But Barco and Damm have been here longer. Kubo Torres has been here longer. You have expectations because of what they've done in the past. Now, I think all of them have had injury issues that have made it difficult for them to perform their best, but they have a different expectation than a Caden Clark or a Daryl Dike. That's absolutely true. There's nothing wrong with that. But the players have to perform too, and they have to be healthy to perform. And that's been one of the biggest things this season, is injuries have kept you from fielding a consistent group for those players to perform their best and to build together as a unit. It's just been impossible.
Can you think of, off the top of your head, how many, and this is a stat that's used in the NFL a lot, when it comes to games missed, and how many man games have been missed by all of the injuries this year?
It's a hard one to do, I guess. I don't know exactly how they define it, if it's just simple of a player that you would expect to be a starter who isn't. That's changed a little bit for this team as the year's gone on, but you work backwards from players who haven't played a lot this season. Joseph, obviously, would have been a starter every game he'd be available, so that's a whole bunch. Marcelino Moreno / Pitti, you've gotten 9 starts out of them. Part of that is down to just the time period of getting Moreno into the roster, but that designated player role, 9 starts, yeah, that's a problem. Jurgen Damm, 4 starts. Now, he hasn't been available for the whole season. He's come in 11 matches. He started 4 times. You'd love for him to have started at least 10 in the time that he's been here. Kubo Torres, 4 starts, 10 matches. Josetu, 8 starts in 12 matches. Barco, 9 starts in 12 matches. That's another one that you would have expected to have more games in 20 that they've played to start 9. You'd expect Barco to be starting double that at least. Meza, that's another one we forget about. 10 starts, half. Those are the main ones. I'm not going to quibble over Escobar, 14 starts in 20. Heineman, 15 starts in 20. Robinson, although he did miss some early, 15 starts in 20. Bello, 16 starts in 20. Lennon, 18 starts in 20. Those are all fine. Over 14 is fine. I think it's Meza missing half of the games. Barco not starting more than half of the games. The Pitti Moreno spot that has had less than half of the starts in the games played. Dom and Torres not getting more starts since they joined. So it's a lot. And then Joseph. I mean, Joseph is all of them but one. So it's a sizable number. I don't know how it compares to other teams around the league.
Right, but just in looking at it in microcosm for Atlanta United, because I know that folks will sit there and they look at injuries in other sports, and you can add man games up. And, well, yeah, they've had a lot of players that would have been a part of the discussion that haven't been because they've been out injured. And I didn't know if there was a quantification that could be put in there for Atlanta United.
Mizzano, talking about Barco, says, I wonder how much Barco is injury-prone, whether due to being fouled in play or injuries in training will affect his value to other clubs when the time comes. Yeah, it's going to have an effect. It will. There's no way around it. His injuries have been all different that I know of, with the exception of the quad. I don't know if it's the same quad that he had an issue with when he first got here after his first training camp. I believe that was a quad. The injury last year, that was because he was being fouled. That was a kick. I don't know where he was coming back from the long break because he wasn't 90 minutes fit coming into Orlando day one. I don't know if that was major or minor, but there's been plenty of players around the world who've had that kind of issue, just being slower to get back into full shape after all these stops and starts. So you give him a little bit of slack on that one. The quad here in the second half, the knee last year where he got kicked, and then he missed the first month and a half in 2018 due to injury. They're different injuries, I think. The quad, I don't know if a quad injury 2 years apart necessarily tells you it's injury prone. But people are going to ask.
Yeah.
And they have to. That's due diligence. He'll have a medical. They'll check all these things out. If everything checks out, that question gets answered quickly. But, yeah, it'll come up, and it'll be a reason why people try to offer less money, for sure. There's no way around it, because you're always looking for some reason to pay less.
Yeah.
If you go buy a used car, you're looking for something to knock the price down, right?
So yeah, there's a scratch, there's a ding, there's some pain.
Oh, he had an injury. He had a knee injury in 2019. Well, he was kicked, and it was a contact injury, and now he's okay. See? Here's the scan. He's fine. Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. You're going to try. That's
of course,
yeah.
You wouldn't be a good businessman if you weren't.
Absolutely.
When it came to negotiating.
Absolutely. So all kinds of different stuff in the Twitch pitch. Yes, Ragamuffin, positions are completely rigid. Players never play different positions. It is true. I'm crazy. I know. I'll stop. The Twitch pitch has exploded today. It's good, though. It's good.
Yeah,
I can't keep up, which is a good thing.
Yes.
And you guys are having lots of conversations that I'm just kind of looking through like, okay, yeah, I see. Okay, I can't get into this. Okay, got it. I'm trying to catch up as best I can. I want to make sure all the good points are there. So please chime them in now, because I'm going to skim through kind of quick to get to it. I'm just trying to catch everything. What?
When it comes to Colorado in the West, do we have a definitive answer yet about points per game or all the other?
It's going to have to be. There's no way they can play the rest of their games. It's going to be
because right
impossible.
now they would be 7th in points per game, even though right now they're next to last in the table on points.
They should not make the playoffs on points per game in this scenario. I hope it doesn't come to that, because if I'm the San Jose Earthquakes, I am irate.
Yeah.
I am absolutely irate if they get in ahead of me because of it. They might, because there's no way they can finish the schedule. It's impossible. So I don't know. That question has not been answered just yet. And it's something the league's going to have to answer very, very soon. There's no way around it. They've got to give an answer. Okay, Twitch pitch. You guys throw in what you want now. I'm going to go ahead and catch all the way up because, good grief, I can't keep up. I can't keep up.
That's good though.
I am going to start with Mezzano's highlighted message, and I don't have a timestamp on it. Hold that. If you guys have things you want to say, please throw them in now. All right. A couple things to touch on before we get to that, before we finish today. Talked about the Cincinnati situation where they were ticked off about the corner that Minnesota scored on. They said the ball last came off of Reynoso from Minnesota. Obviously, the referees didn't. It couldn't be reviewed because it's not actually part of the attacking phase of play, even though it led to the corner that did lead to the goal. You can't review corners. So it's nothing that you could review. They're angry. They still lost. what else did we get? There's some unnamed sources saying Aaron Johansson, remember him from the 2014 World Cup, he is very interested in a move to MLS, and there are a few clubs who are interested. He's finally recovered from a whole bunch of injuries over a long period of time. He's got 13 goals and 1 assist in 22 games in the Swedish First Division for Hammarby. I think an MLS move would be smart for him because he'd probably make more money. There would be teams that would want a goal scorer up top, like Aaron Johansson, if he's healthy. And he's stayed healthy for a little while now, so, okay, I think you can take a flyer on him. One of the biggest bits of news, it was not El Trafico, although there were a lot of storylines coming out of that. No Chicharito due to injury, Vela's return, some controversy with VAR, and could VAR have gotten involved, and should VAR have gotten involved. They did get the red card 100% correct with VAR. They nailed that one. I think it's a valid question about checking if that ball was out that led to the counter, because it was a very quick counter, but it was also very far back in the attacking phase of play. Would you even consider that the attacking phase of play? I'm okay with the interpretation that it's not. I still think they missed the call, even though it's not definitive. But I think they missed it. It's a judgment call on if that ball was out or not. But to say that it's not part of the attacking phase of play, I'm okay with that interpretation, if that's the official interpretation. Who knows what we'll get from Pro on that, if they'll actually give us an official interpretation, or if they just will ignore it, or they'll give us BS and say that everything was fine and there's nothing wrong ever because no referees ever make bad decisions, ever. Explain it to us, because if that's not attacking phase of play, tell us so we know.
Yeah.
Because I'm okay with that. It's on the other end of the field. You can absolutely say it's not part of the attacking phase of play. The biggest news of the weekend, though, was Brad Sims, the CEO of New York City, talking about a stadium on New York City FC's broadcast. Mm-hmm. He was asked about it in the pre-match, and he said, I think that's something that remains a huge, huge priority of the club, something that's extremely important to us. I feel the fans' pain. I know how badly they want it. I know how badly they want news or confirmation of it. And I can assure all of our fans that there is no stronger sense of urgency possible than what we have right now to be able to deliver that to our fans. And we have a team that's working on it full-time 100% of the time. And we've made a ton of progress. We really have. And we're very optimistic as we've ever been. Having said that, it's a long process, and for us, arguably, the most important part of that process is the community input, working with community leaders, and making sure that this project is something that reflects what they want and what's important for their community. We feel that this is something, not just the stadium, but the overall project that we're going to be working on, that's going to be transformational for the South Bronx, and we need to make sure that everyone is aligned with that vision. But we're making progress, we're feeling good about it, and we've never been as optimistic as we are right now, and hopefully we'll have some good news to share with our fans as soon as we can. That's as big of a statement as they've ever made about a stadium. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of work to be done because it's not easy to build stuff in New York City. There is a lot of community work that still needs to be done, but they are making a lot of progress. There have been a lot of things that where this has been tripped up before, they've passed those hurdles. It really feels like it is going to come together. Now, I don't know the timeline. I don't know, but I will still stick to what I've said about this issue. If they can't get this stadium done and they don't have an immediate backup, they can't stay at Yankee Stadium indefinitely.
Yeah.
If they are at Yankee Stadium until this project gets done, I'm okay with that. It's worth it if that's the case. But they've got to get this one done. Because if everything else falls off the table, if this falls off the table, any other backup plans fall off the table, and the only thing left is Yankee Stadium, they have to explore different options in moving the team. I don't see a long-term future at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But that's where it stands. That's good that they're talking about it. That you don't normally start talking about these things if there are still major concerns. So that is a good sign. All right. Yeah. Good. Thoughts?
No, I'm right there with you. It's like, I just, if you can't get this deal done with NYCFC, the stadium deal, you can't stay there long term. You just can't. And then you get into the whole notion of, well, then where do you go?
Who knows? I don't have.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like that's over here. get this done for the sake of the team, because this has been a discussion we've been having since beyond day one of having them out here as a part of Major League Soccer. And so I want this done. I know that we've been talking about it where it's a couple of yards over where you could have the facility built and all this kind of stuff, but get it done. That's all I can say, because just all of the talk, work on this as hard as possible, get this done, because then you're talking about other things that you don't want to talk about where NYCFC's future is concerned.
Okay. Mizzano, when a team has clear talent, say like the Falcons or Atlanta United, when the team doesn't perform, is the fault with the players or the coaching? Depends on the situation. Here, I think there's a big part of the fault on injuries, a huge part.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was a decision that the coaching was an issue, or you would not have had a coaching change. So that factored in as well. I think it was more about the culture of the team with the technical staff than the job they were doing. At least that's what it sounds like. But the job then wasn't done in Orlando, and you get to the point that you did. So I think injuries can also factor into that, but it depends on the situation. There's not a 100% answer with that, because you've seen talented teams have bad coaching and get bad results. You've seen talented teams with great coaching who have gotten results in the past, and those players don't perform. You've seen that too. So everything's different. Clayton said the lineup on Saturday received rave reactions and it amounted to nothing. It didn't amount to a goal. It did amount to more shots on target. It did amount to more chances created than you've seen lately. It didn't amount to a goal. And ultimately, that's what the job was to score first. And it didn't. That's not good enough. That's not. There's no way to get around it.
Yeah.
Bart says, I think putting everything on 2020 on losing Joseph is the scapegoat. I'm not saying that. I want to make this clear. I don't think anybody's saying that, actually. I think it's the opposite. People are leaving that out of the conversation about 2020. I think that's the biggest issue with the results this season. But no, it's not all on that. I would never say that I haven't said that. I think it's an issue that is left out of the discussion far too often. But no, it's a lot of things. That's the biggest one. If I had to pick one, that's the one I would pick. But I don't think it's one issue. I think it's a number of different things. Injuries, poor performances. You made a coaching change, so coaching was an issue at one point in the season for sure. I don't think it's as much of an issue now, because I think the defense is better than it's been. Not in this game, because you gave up a bad goal, and then you gave up a bad second goal. But the Joseph injury is the biggest issue, in my opinion. It's not the only issue. It is the biggest issue. I don't think anybody's saying that, and that's why I want to make it clear that I'm not saying that. But I do think it is the biggest part of the problem. Yeah. And I think that's being left out of the conversation a lot. But Uncle says if we become a broken team without Joseph, we don't deserve him to begin with. That doesn't make sense. This team has dropped off in performance without him every year they've played, because he's missed games at different points, whether it's international duty, whether it's an injury. I mean, the conversation in 2017 when he did his quad on international duty with Venezuela was, oh, no, we can't score any goals. We can't score any goals. And you started to find some, but they dried up. It wasn't the same. It wasn't. Tito Villalba had a couple of good games up top. Miguel Almiron had a big game. It's not the same without him. That's any team. Tottenham Hotspur wasn't the same without Harry Kane last year. I mean, that happens. That's the game. So that's the game for every team. It's not different. It's not. Go watch All or Nothing with Tottenham and look at the frustration on Jose Mourinho as injuries kept happening. He said something at one point like, we have the injury to Harry Kane. And then we work and we find solutions and we're okay. And then we have injuries to the solutions. And then we're stuck. Like, it's real. It happens. Yeah. And Clayton says there's no one from the midfield showing a goal-scoring presence in 2017. Now, one point to that, Clayton, is that Villalba moved up top in 2017 for a portion of it. Kenwyn Jones came off and scored a couple of goals in a couple of games, too, at that time. But Tito moved up top when he scored his goals there in that run of games. So it's a little different to say that it was the midfield just stepping up. But you did not have a Miguel Almiron as a secondary goal scorer. And that was an issue last year, too. You didn't have a secondary goal scorer. You need one. Tito Villalba had a bad year last year. He did. He didn't produce. You need somebody at a minimum in a normal year. If Joseph is a 20-goal-a-year scorer, you need somebody who's threatening 10. You need somebody else there to be a secondary scorer, and that wasn't there last year, and it hasn't been there this year. But the team's been really different without Joseph because teams can defend you differently. That's for sure. Let's see here. Lots of back and forth. Jagged Star says, I still think we don't have on-the-field emotional leadership. I don't think I've seen anyone trying to get the others fired up, either through actions or words, or better yet, both. The ones I've seen doing that at times, and this is totally anecdotal, this is what's popping into my mind. I've seen Brooks Lennon do that. I've actually seen Emerson Hyndman do that a few times, which was surprising. I've seen John Gallagher do that.
Mm-hmm.
Escobar more by example.
Yeah.
Which is fine if that's the case. That's about it. And that's an issue. That's absolutely an issue. I think the intention was for Meza to turn into that. That's something Michael Parker said when we did a Q&A with Soccer in the Streets. A really cool little thing we did earlier in the summer where Parker's talked about, the way he saw it was Meza was being groomed to be that person. Well, then he got hurt for most of the year. And he hasn't been able to become a leader in a team when he's not in the team. So there's been a gap there, 100%. There's been a gap there, and it hasn't been filled. And you've got players in this team that have been there for a long time, that wear the captain's armband, that are different kinds of leaders. And they're not very expressive on the field. And you need some of that. You do. That's a valid point, Jagged Star. I really do think that's it. I'm way behind Clayton Poss. I'm trying to catch up. I had to skip ahead, and I'm way behind. Modaflow talking about Gallagher leading the line. He gets in behind, which gives the team a different way to play. Seems like whoever we have up front is negated by the team itself. If John is in, they don't play in those crosses, but with Gallagher, they cross all day. That's a good point, and that needs to be reversed. If John is in, get back to the times where John's played well, where you can involve him in the build-up, but then you're trying to create a crossing situation for Adam John to get on the end of. When John Gallagher is in, you can involve him in the build-up, same way, but you're looking to get in behind with pace. And you can also look in those situations to get in behind from wide positions with Dom and with Barco coming diagonally inside to goal as opposed to staying wide looking for crosses. Same with Bello and Lennon when they're moved up the field. Yeah, it's reversed. It's felt like you're crossing all day looking for John Gallagher to go up and fight against some trees, which is not a good situation to put him in. And you're not giving that service to John when he's in there. That's a good point. It's crazy. Uncle, I disagree in that you should sell Joseph and improve the team. I don't buy that excuse. Then sell every good goal scorer because every team's relying on a goal scorer. It's worldwide. This is not just an Atlanta thing. That's just a fact. Like, you need that guy, and when you don't have that guy, you're going to struggle. You need to be better at dealing when you don't have that guy, 100%. That's a valid concern and a valid complaint. But you don't say you don't want a top player in that case. Then you want to be the New York Red Bulls. Or you want to be a team that just has a system and just plugs and plays and you don't have stars. I don't think that would work here. I don't think that's what people want. It's okay to have a step down. When you have a top quarterback and they get hurt, you're going to fall off. It happens. It's real. Burns says, weirdly enough, Castro became the biggest problem. If he could have filled in for Joseph the way Tito filled in 17, we could have survived this season. Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's what Frank saw, at least going into the first game in the MLS's back tournament. I don't know why he went away from it so fast. That and the first 45 against Columbus were my biggest two complaints about Frank in Orlando. If he saw Castro as that guy, one bad day at the office against the Red Bulls and his first game in that role should not have ruled him out of it going forward. I think it wrecked his confidence, and he hasn't been the same player in the opportunities he's had since. But yeah, if he had been able to fill that role in that way, he would have been closer to the way Joseph plays. You might have been in a different situation. Tito did that in 2017. Now, Tito didn't do that at other times. He didn't do that last year. I don't think it would have. I mean, you can't see into the future. Tito was already gone by that point. But I don't know if it would have been different with him. But I think Castro was expected to be able to do that. Frank expected it. He talked it up. It didn't happen. That's a really good point from Byrne. That would have changed everything. Let's see. Katie says, agree about overemphasizing Joseph's absence. If that's happening, y'all tell me, because I'm not seeing it. I feel like when I say it, I get people like looking at me sideways. I don't feel like it's being talked about enough. If it is, maybe I'm missing it. And if that's the case, that's fine. I think it is the biggest issue. I 100% do.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard it as the number one issue either. I've heard it undermentioned as opposed to overmentioned.
But as I've said many times, if you guys disagree with me, that is completely fine. Please do. I'm going to have the conversation with you if you want. And I'll tell you how I feel and why I think that way. But if we disagree, we disagree. It's all good. That's welcome to soccer. Welcome to sports, but especially this one. I think you get a lot of it. Okay, I'm going to scroll on to the end because, man, I tried to catch up and holy crap.
Let me give you Ricky Ricardo, who hopped into the timeline over here.
It went so much further than I would have ever expected. Y'all are awesome. Thank you for having your own conversations while I'm rambling on. I hope I haven't distracted you.
No, and we're having them over here on Twitter as well.
Good.
That's also a good thing.
Good.
Ricky Ricardo says, I get the conversation about how people feel in regards to not making the playoffs, but I believe the bigger thing that will benefit this club, is missing 2021 CONCACAF Champions League.
Good point.
And not having this schedule be truncated with a new manager. Obviously, CCL is important and where this club should consistently be, but it'll be better to start out without it for 2021.
Yeah, that was something Frank talked about in 2019. That would absolutely help. It's crazy. I mean, that you're kind of hoping that doesn't happen. I mean, if they go on a run and win MLS Cup, you're going to take it. But yes, it would be a big help to not have to start playing competitive games earlier, to be able to have more of a longer preseason to build the way you want. I totally agree with that, Ricky. I think that'll be a nice bonus if that happens, and it should happen. It absolutely is where it's looking like it's going to happen right now.
And we haven't heard anything about, I mean, what's the resumption for 2020 Champions League? Is that November, December? Is that what we're hearing?
December. We've said this. It's after everybody's seasons are over. They can't do it in November.
Right.
You still have playoffs, and you have Mexico playoffs. There's nowhere to play. So they're talking about the third week of December. Neutral site. That's what's being talked about. It hasn't been announced yet. They're going to finish it because they need to for financial reasons. That's a good situation for the young players for Atlanta United because you will get time to train for a game. It'll basically be like a training camp. You'll probably let some players not participate in that if they need the time off, but that's where I would expect to see Tyler Wolff, George Campbell, Lawrence White potentially, others, because you can call up players from Atlanta United too for that game. And if you have a month to train for it and you're going to field a more second-string squad to let them get that time training, hey, that could put them in a better position for next year. That'll be interesting to see how they manage it. It'll be a very unique situation. Very unique. What else we got on Twitter?
No, that was it. We're caught up.
I got you, Uncle. It's cool. I figured it was a hypothetical, but I just think the idea of like a goal scorer being the most important thing in a team, it's pretty standard. I think it's pretty common around the world where you have a player that is that guy. When you miss him, and it shows. But you always want that focal point. You're better off to have that. And this was always the complaint. I mean, go into basketball for a second. This was always the complaint about the great Hawks team that won 60 games while they don't have a scorer. They don't have one person that you give the ball to in the fourth quarter. They don't have that. So they can't win. And ultimately that was proven. They didn't get to the finals. You need that guy. So to have that guy, when you miss them, it's going to be a problem. It just is. Burns says, with the way COVID is going, I doubt there will be CCL games in December or February. There may be some, but probably lots of dropped games. I think the latter is what it'll be. I think they'll probably do some kind of a bubble for the games in December. They really need to finish it, or they're going to have to give money back, and CONCACAF's not in a position to give money back. So they're going to find a way to get it done. If they do it where you play the LA series as a one game because they didn't start, you play the others as a one game to play the second legs of the quarters, you play one semifinal, two semifinal, and a final. You're talking 7 games. I think you can get that done, and you could do it in a week if you had to. I mean, if you play the quarterfinal games that you have left, Saturday, Sunday, you play the semifinals on Wednesday, you play the final the next Saturday. You could do it in a week if you have to. I think it'll be a bubble burn. I'm not 100% sure. That was what was talked about, was Florida, Texas, Mexico. I think California was on the table.
Yeah, it's those 4.
They'll pick somewhere and go and do it in like a week to finish it. I do wonder what it could mean for the 21 CONCACAF Champions League, because it's going to be hard to do home and away and international travel in as early as February. CONCACAF League went to a straight knockout. I wonder if you invite more teams and go to a straight knockout. CONCACAF League is home and away, right? Or is it just even one game straight knockout? I think it's just one game.
Yeah, it's one game because what happened last week was one game.
Yeah, it's not even that. So you might have to do that and just invite more teams to get the number of games to meet your sponsorship requirements and all that. Who knows? It's brutal for these organizations right now because the financial pressures are real. They are not fake. They are not overblown. They are real for a CONCACAF that needs to disperse monies to these smaller federations. So they've got to have these competitions. These things happen. They just have to. Let's see here. Shiva had asked about why is Jeff not in the lineup? It's clear we are better when he is in. You didn't have a drop-off in that position at all on Saturday. I don't think that had anything to do with the result. Mo Adams was great. Mm-hmm. There was no problem with that position. The problem was you didn't score goals. You had the chances, you didn't score goals. The longer you don't score goals, the more risk you run of a goal the other way. It's from a set piece. It's a bad goal to give up. You have to score goals. Mo Adams wasn't the problem for me at all. And that's not to say that the team's not better with Jeff. Jeff has been great, and I would have thought he would have started. I was surprised he didn't. It ended up not being an issue at all. I thought Mo was really good. Let's see. ATL UTD Tom. Teams are willing to spend big to get a goal scorer. In a salary cap league, you cannot afford many. That's true. It's hard to have a top backup. The best way you get there is you develop them yourself. And they're, it's a homegrown reserve that can come in on a great salary cap number, but produce. And the Red Bulls have done a good job with that. Now, the Red Bulls have kind of went to a goal scorer by committee situation, but they've developed guys. Can Jackson Conway be that kind of guy? Potentially. That's a decision that's going to need to be made. I really think he could be very cap-friendly backup forward. But can he produce when the time comes? That's it. Ricky says, given where we are in this country when it comes to COVID, does it feel like this season's format of mostly all-conference games will be the schedule in 2021? I don't think we can have a regular season starting in February, March.
Yeah.
I don't know, because here's what it comes down to. You need to get as many fans back in the buildings as possible. And Byrne makes a good point. Hertha Berlin announced losses of 50 million euro for their last business year on revenues of 180 million euro. Things are brutal. That's the Bundesliga, where they're pretty well run. Leagues with lower TV revenue than the Bundesliga, MLS is one of those. Owners can't have teams play behind closed doors for an extended period of time and expect to be a viable business. I don't think anybody is at risk of going away in Major League Soccer. I do not see that. There's speculation that you could have multiple National Hockey League teams go on hiatus. There's speculation about it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a whole lot of conversation about it, but that's out there. You do have minor league teams doing it, but that's out there because they have more TV revenue, but smaller revenues in general. They can't afford it. MLS can't long-term afford it. Owners are going to be eating money if that's the case. So when you look at the schedule for next year, you would like to start as late as you can to ensure that you can have as many people attend games as possible. But there's only so late in the calendar you can start. Because you do have a format. You do fit into a worldwide calendar that's very difficult to manage. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have the answer. But it is a concern for sure. The question about the conference side of things, I don't hate that idea at all. And I don't hate that if that becomes more of the regular thing for the league as a whole. It would solve the idea about playing everybody. In some ways, you would essentially have two supporter shields. You'd have one for the East and one for the West. You would play home and away against everybody in your conference. And then you would either, and I think what they would want to do, would be to have a few non-conference games.
Yeah.
You would love to have your LA, New York games. You'd love to have Miami and LAFC. You'd love to have Atlanta and Portland. Like, there's some games that you'd want. But do you go to a conference schedule with crossover games? It's possible. But I think the bigger issue is going to be getting people in the building.
Yeah.
That's going to drive this decision. I was a little surprised that the NBA has backed off of their conversation about holding the start of the season until they can have fans in venues. They're more in the idea now of getting started before Christmas because they want those holiday dates for TV purposes. Maybe their numbers haven't looked as bad with the TV money and what they think they'll get and what they think they'll lose. Maybe they've looked at it and they feel okay with it. They feel like they're better off to start now and get the TV money now, or start as early as they can and get the TV money in as early as they can. MLS is a different conversation. They need the people in the buildings. And I don't know what it looks like to get them in there. I really don't. It's sad that that's still the conversation. There are plenty of reasons for it, and we're not going to rehash all of them. People just need to wear masks. That's the one thing that everybody can make the decision to do that will help. But it is a valid thing to bring up that mask wearing in other countries has been high, and there are still recurring issues. Italy is pulling back from fans in the stands. They've had, I think, 1,000 people in the stands. They're pulling back from that. That's not going to happen anymore right now. There was a match in Europa League this week that Real Sociedad was going to have fans at the Reale Arena for their match with Napoli. That has been ruled out. Local health authorities have ruled that out. New state of emergency yesterday in Spain. Talked about the one in Ireland. It's not going away anywhere. Everybody needs to be in on this worldwide in doing everything they can to deal with it, because even if, one country doesn't and everybody else does, well, that one country can spread it. And maybe we're starting to see that. I don't know. But that's my biggest fear, Ricky, when you talk about the schedule and what it can look like. I don't know, because they have to get fans in the building for as many games as possible next year, because it just has to be financially viable. I mean, if Hertha Berlin's losing €50 million, that's a lot. You've got some teams here that haven't really lost a lot of money in previous years, which is a good thing. That's why MLS is viable. But if those narrow profits or narrow losses turn into massive losses in a year, what's the appetite for the period of time that you're going to take those massive losses? Because you understand the situation. It's out of your control. Like, if you own one of these teams, there's nothing you can do about this. You can do everything from a messaging standpoint. Yes, you can do those things. Don't get me wrong. But there's nothing you can do in the greater sense to change the losses you're going to have. So what do you do? I don't know. I really don't. So when the schedule starts next year, I think you'd like to have it as late as possible to have as many people in the building. But are we going to be having a different conversation in March or April or May? I would hope so.
Yeah.
But am I optimistic about that right now? No, I'm not, sadly. I don't know what the answer is. I don't. But, yeah, that financial question, it will affect the schedule for next year. It will affect when the calendar starts for next year. It'll affect all of that. And there is a balance because there is money coming in from other things than people being in the building. Do you want to shut all of that off for right now to maximize your game day revenue for as much of the season as you can? I don't know every club's answer on that because I don't think it's a consistent answer.
Yeah, you mentioned the NBA. They would start December 22nd-ish, and then that way it would be a 72-game regular season, and it would be shut down. Everything would be finished before the Olympics. And then the Olympics
and that factors into it for them. That would not be an issue with the MLS conversation. So, Uncle says, if we start 21 bad, do we continue this next year rebuild mentality? Can't help but feel next year will be more of this. I mean, I understand the feeling. I disagree with you. I think with a healthy team going into the season with a full training camp with a new manager, I don't know why you would expect more of this. I don't. But if you buy into the roster's horrible and there's no talent in it, then yeah, you would. I don't think that's the case. I don't think there's a rebuild mentality. There shouldn't be. But again, if people feel like the roster is horrible, then yes. I think you have 10, maybe 9, depending on Barco's situation, of your starters for next year here. I think the 6 is the biggest question. And then obviously the question about Barco. And if he goes, you're going to replace him with a frontline player that you have to get the signing right. But I don't think it's a rebuild. I think some of the depth personnel, there could be reloading there. There absolutely could. But I don't consider that a rebuild, but that's just how you want to define the term. Attendance from Saturday, I did not see that Wikipedia is listing it as 6,130. I haven't seen that number. 5,000 to 6,000, it seems about right. I mean, looking at it on TV, you're not going to see everybody for sure. There were thousands of people in the building. I don't know what the final number was. It's impossible to even guess. I don't know if anything was said about any kind of official attendance.
MLSsoccer.com on the box score sheet is also listing 61.
So that's where they pulled the number. Okay. Yeah, it feels about right. I thought it was between 5 and 6 is what I was hearing. So it's a guessing game for us looking at it because you can't see. Okay. I want to finish this off. Any other tweets?
The answer is no, sir. We're caught up.
Okay. Katie on coaching. We've seen some problems get fixed. Early goals, not an issue lately. Giant holes in midfield have gotten better mostly. Breakdowns in transition have improved. Team has gotten unlucky at times, hasn't improved in the final third. It hasn't all been shambles for Glass. I don't think it's been shambles at all. I do think it's changed. Transition to conceding late goals because you need to score first. I mean, you give up the early goal, you're screwed when you're not a good attacking team. You don't score and you keep another team in the game, yeah, it's the same either way. Like it's if you're not scoring enough goals, you're not going to win games. But if you're conceding them early, you have no chance. That's a little different. Let's see. Share your final thoughts on the Twitch picture on Twitter if you want. We're not going a whole lot longer. We're definitely not going 3 hours. Don't even get your hopes up.
No.
Why are you yelling like that?
So I got to go vote today.
Oh, you're going to go vote today? Okay, good.
Forward Madison and technical director and head coach Daryl Shore have mutually parted ways effective immediately.
Yeah, it wasn't a good year for them, so I guess I'm not shocked in that. But yeah, it was not a good year for Forward Madison.
And there was we forgot to mention the piece of news that is directly behind your left shoulder, which I thought was really cool.
Which piece of news directly behind my left shoulder do you want to mention?
Legendary broadcaster Andres Cantor is the 2020 recipient of the Colin Jose Media Award. Yes.
If you have not heard his Spanish language radio call, I believe it was on the Football de Primera network. If you've not heard that of the Landon Donovan goal, go find it. It's on YouTube. It's easy. Somebody tweeted it at me again because I mentioned it when I tweeted about this. That's my favorite call of a national team moment, period. No question. One, you don't even have to understand any of the words to feel it. You know exactly what happened. You know exactly how this went down, and you know exactly what it meant. you can hear him crying through the words he is saying. And that's an amazing broadcaster, in my opinion. I watched games on Univision with Andres Cantor and Roberto Longo as soon as I found games on Univision, as soon as we had Univision. There were plenty of national team games that you had to watch on Univision because nobody else had it. I remember a game in Costa Rica in the 98 qualifying cycle. I think it was in the semifinal round that they had. And, I mean, so many games I watched there with Andres and Roberto. And, no, I don't speak Spanish. I didn't understand it very well at the time. I understood the feeling of it. And it's something that I've tried to explain, and I know it's rubbed off on the way that I call games and the way that I like to hear games. Because I think at times we get really hung up on terminology and snark and sarcasm and cynicism in broadcasts. And when you hear Andres Cantor call a game, you feel it. And I've had this conversation with people here lately, and we've been talking about crowds being in the buildings. I felt like it's been more important for broadcasters to display and capture that feeling of the match itself when you don't have the fans providing that soundtrack. And Andres is the best at that. And he's born in Buenos Aires, but he has always loved the U.S. men's national team, loved American soccer. I mean, Univision had a game of the week for MLS in year one, and I watched every one of them. Didn't matter if I understood all the words being said. I understood what was happening. I understood what Andres Cantor was capturing for you. And I guess it's not a surprise that there hadn't been a Spanish-language broadcaster to win this award before. I'm glad they're doing it now. He's the best. He's the best. He's the legend. He's the GOAT. No way around it.
Other recipients in the past, it's photojournalism, media relations.
Yeah, it covers a lot of ground.
Yeah, on the TV side of things, you're talking Andres Cantor, JP Della Camera, Seamus Mallon on the TV side. The only three from the TV side that have gotten this award.
Yeah, and hopefully that'll grow. I mean, hopefully that'll grow. But Cantor's amazing. Please go listen to that Landon Donovan call. That's why I love this game, and that's why I love trying to capture moments for people and what it feels like, because I think that's such an important element of it that is prominent in the way games are presented in Spanish and not prominent enough in the way that they're presented in English. This game has a feel to it that transcends words. Yeah. And Cantor is amazing at that, absolutely amazing at that. And his son Nico he's really getting a handle on it quickly. But I think Nico's found the right role for him in that Golazo show. That's a really good fit. But no, Andres is amazing. So I'm really happy he's winning this award. That's a really good call by the National Soccer Hall of Fame. Yeah,
I mean, for me, when I was at home in '86 after the school year was over. That was when I started watching Univision and watched all of the Spanish-speaking games for the world in soccer. I mean,
it was remember, not Univision in 1986.
It was, what was it in '86?
The Spanish Information Network is SIN.
Okay,
is what it was. They rebranded as Univision, I think, before '90.
Yeah. Tony Tirado was part and parcel to '86, and I just remember him always tossing the break, going "Copa del Mundo Mexico 86."
Yeah,
that has stuck with me forever. And the energy that's there and how they present it, like you said, you don't have to understand a word of Spanish to get the energy and get the importance and get the impact that it's having in these moments as they're going back and forth, calling games and talking about it in the studio and all this kind of stuff. To this day, I still watch Tudane. And I'll watch Liga MX games. Do I understand a whole lot of the Spanish language? No, but I get the energy of it all, and I understand what they're investing in it from an emotional standpoint. So for me, that's why I'll watch Liga MX games all day long. That's just me. I do. I mean, I'll watch. Look, I'll watch Nuestra Tele, and they had Colombian matches on. I'll watch TVC and watch Costa Rican soccer just because I understand the energy, and I love the energy that's a part of it.
Okay.
Like I said, that's just how I'm wired.
No, you watch more English games than any of that, though. First off, because you're an English snob.
Yeah, true. I am an English snob. Yes.
You're not even a Euro snob. You're an Anglo snob.
An Anglo snob.
You're even more than that because you're not even watching Scotland or you're not watching Dundalk as much.
It's too early in the morning. I'd love to watch. I'll go back and watch Aberdeen.
Okay, so maybe
7:30 in the morning.
Maybe you will. Then you're an Anglo snob. That's fair enough.
So I'm an Anglo snob.
So here's what I want though. I'm gonna give you an assignment. How about that?
Okay.
Since you are an award winner now, you have an assignment.
All right. So
and
I
everybody
have a pin.
Everybody is congratulating you on your award, and don't be silly. And yes, you absolutely deserve it. I'm very, very happy for you. You deserved that for a long time.
Thank you, my friend.
But you have an assignment.
Okay.
I know you watch games from Mexico.
Yeah.
Every week on Soccer Over There, you have to fill 5 minutes and tell us about the Mexican League.
Okay.
Because I don't watch as much from Mexico. I watch more from South America than I do from Mexico. You have to give us an update on the Mexican League on Soccer Over There every episode now.
Okay.
Because you watch it, and you're free to include your other CONCACAF countries. So if you've watched Costa Rica or Honduras or whatever else.
So it's like soccer down there.
It's CONCACAF. Yeah. It is the CONCACAF update.
Okay.
And, I mean, we'll even though it's in English, we'll even include the Canadian Premier League when it's active. You have to give the CONCACAF update outside of MLS.
All right.
That is your new feature segment on Soccer Over There.
Okay.
All
right.
I like it.
Does that start tonight?
Yes, it starts tonight. It starts tonight.
Okay.
It absolutely starts tonight.
Okay.
You can handle it. You got time, I think. You've got time. You can figure it out. Right?
Yeah, like I said. Do
it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
See? There you go.
Me and O'Reilly, yeah, we're like this.
Totally. Okay. Now that we've had our fun. But yes, Andres Cantor, awesome. I might just play that at the end of the show because
I think so. That'd
awesome.
Be great.
Okay, so we talked about the attendance. Uncle No Pockets says, so, no rebuild mentality next year. Marking this down. You can mark it down, at least from my perspective. I'm not running the team. I'm not going into next year thinking it's a rebuild. I don't think Atlanta United thinks about years as a rebuild. I think there are times they reload. I think there are times that they change pieces. But rebuild for me is saying we're not going to be good for a minute.
Yeah, it's like the Arizona Cardinals.
Did they say that?
Last year they go 3-13. They brought in Steve Wilkes to be their head coach. You have Josh Rosen coming in from UCLA as their quarterback. They go 3-13. Then they're like, nope. And then fired Wilkes, got rid of Rosen, brought in Cliff Kingsbury. Kyler Murray is the number one, and you see what they're doing.
Okay. I don't know if they announced it as a rebuild. I think most times when people think rebuild, like it's, hey, we're going to rebuild, so we're going to be bad for a minute.
Yeah.
I don't think Atlanta will do that. They shouldn't. They shouldn't ever be in that situation, and I don't think they're in that situation now. So, Uncle, I'm 100% saying I don't think they rebuild for next year. Clayton says, why did we not question Atlanta having a manager as their plan after firing FDB, but other teams around MLS we were questioned their lack of a plan after firing their coach because of COVID? I haven't questioned anybody's lack of a plan. Red Bulls made a quick hire. I questioned the hire because Struber hasn't done a whole lot, but he comes from the Red Bull organization loosely, so I get it. But I questioned that hire. I didn't question the plan or lack of a plan when they moved on from Armas. Who else has made a move? Ben Olsen. That needed to happen. They are where they are. They didn't need to have a plan for that. I don't think they wanted to fire Ben Olsen, and I get it. I think they probably wanted to make the move after the season was over. It got too bad. They had to do it, so they did it. Who else? Who else in the league has changed this season?
Cincinnati, but that was
different. That was a whole other conversation. That was, again, off the field issues before the season. So, no, that's a different conversation, too.
And that's it.
If the Galaxy moved on from Guillermo Barros Escaloto, which is being rumored, if they have a plan or don't have a plan, I don't know. No, I understand the year as being what the year is. It's hard to have a plan when you make an unexpected change. I mean, it's real. So the only thing that I can remember was with Struber. I questioned the hire of Struber.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he's done a whole lot outside of being part of the Red Bull Salzburg youth organization. But in terms of the plan, I mean, they haven't been able to get him into the country, but they had to get him out of his deal in England. So I guess you couldn't really get all that done and then announce it right before he can come into the team. You probably just didn't have any other way around it. But no, I questioned the hire itself, not the plan. At least that's me. If anybody else did, I can't speak for anybody else. Burned said, clubs need to get back to 50% capacity quickly. Anything below that doesn't solve many issues. Cost of opening the stadium, greater being the ticket revenue. We need to get the virus levels down quickly, and then the authorities need to study plausibility of super spreading during sports events. In Germany, the clubs all proclaim there haven't been any infections during Bundesliga games, but that needs to be studied better. Yeah, it absolutely needs to be studied. I know there's been anecdotal things on these large events that have had the majority of people wearing masks, like protests, where there have not been spreading events. At least that's what some reports are saying. Then there are reports of some of the Donald Trump rallies that people have not been wearing masks that have been spreading events. I think the wearing masks at these large events is a key, but they do have to study that, Burned. They have to be able to say that in stadiums, if everybody are wearing masks as they are supposed to, what is the likelihood of the super spreading event?
Yeah.
That has to be answered before you can get to the 50% at least. It needs to be studied. And I don't know if there's people or time or manpower or bandwidth to study it better. Cassie said, how are y'all doing? It's good. Honestly, I mean, I was... Saturday, I was frustrated after the game. I was in a bad mood the whole night. Yesterday was okay. I mean, it's better when the team's playing better, for sure. But that's part of the job. It's part of the job calling these games is capturing. And I haven't talked to Mike about it yet. I felt like our call was maybe one of our best because, again, going back to the feeling of it, Mike was angry. Mike was frustrated. I was angry in some different ways, and we went back and forth a little bit on some stuff, and I thought it was a really good broadcast to capture what that game was and what those couple of hours were. I was happy about that. It's just it's a lot more fun when the team's winning. So I'm good. Today's been fine. Sometimes these shows, I worry about them with the reactions. I think people who listen and interact, you kind of know where I'm coming from. Even if you disagree, I think you're respectful about it. And we go back and forth about stuff, and you can sense that I'm frustrated, and I know you're frustrated, and it's good. That's why you guys are the best, because you're not being unfair towards us because we're not playing, we're trying to figure it out like you guys. And yeah, we have feelings about it. And if they don't mesh, that's okay. That's okay. Cassie also says, good luck voting today, John.
Yeah.
Well, and how are you doing?
From all indications, it's been fairly easy to get in. I mean, I think
it's spread out enough now. Those first couple of days were crazy, but I think it's, a lot of people have already voted, so this feels like the time to do the early voting.
Yeah, and before we go, thanks to everyone who reached out on Facebook, on Twitter, on social media. Joe Boss did it this morning.
On the Twitch pitch right now from Shiva and Jason Nix and Burned.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to mention. Everybody on the Twitch pitch who's reached out. It's very humbling to get that recognition from the Georgia Association of Broadcasters, and thanks to each and every one of you who've reached out to congratulate me. And we do what we love, and when you tell kids who are in college, it's like, well, describe your style, or do whatever, and it's like, do as I say, not as I do, because I'm so far over here when it comes to doing things. But to be recognized, for the record, that is the first solo award that I have ever received in television. I've won a lot of collaborative stuff, but that's the first solo award I've ever gotten. But thank you to everybody.
A long time coming.
Mm-hmm.
So very cool. Soccer for Good OG 2020 crowd restrictions and physical distancing is the antithesis of what Atlanta United is as a club. The two most catastrophic things that could happen for us, losing Joseph and a freaking pandemic, happened, and 2020 will go down in history as the worst year ever, never to be repeated or discussed again. I fully subscribe to that theory. I am all on board. Pacine has a recommendation for you for your new CONCACAF update.
Yes.
Just spend the first 4 minutes crapping on El Tree like their own commentators do. So there you go.
I probably will end up going rapid fire and come up with some of the more odd yet not surprising news of the day in the CONCACAF update.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun 5 minutes. I'm going to time it, too. It's going to be 5 minutes. Your 5 minutes of CONCACAF. You've got a few hours to come up with a good name for it, too. So
yeah,
5 minutes, CONCACAF update, probably heavily in Mexico, but, you can bounce around. It's all good.
Oh, well, considering that I'm the one in our timeline that when I'm watching Costa Rican television, I'll be the guy who's shooting the photographs in our conversation about, hey, they're on the opposition, on the visitor's side, they can watch and they can sit under a tree and watch a match. Seriously, there's one pitch, there's one stadium in Costa Rica where on the visitor's side there is a big, I don't know what kind of a tree it is, but it looks like a big old oak tree that is in the stands in and of itself, and they built the stands, the cement stands around the oak tree, so you can sit under this tree at the center line of the opposition side. I want to say it's a Limon. I think it's their stadium that has the tree, and then they also have a shade tree off to the far left in the corner that you can sit under too.
Nice.
Oh, it's tremendous. It's great.
Nice. Bernd Dursberger said, there's a call on Austrian TV from the World Cup in 78 when Austria beat Germany that is still being played regularly. It's become a saying. The announcer died, but his son now calls the national team games. These famous calls are so powerful, they last generations. Awesome for the contours. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, when you capture that moment properly, that lives forever. It's something you can't, try to do going into a game, I don't think, and really get it right. You might have an idea of where you want to go if things work a certain direction, but if it comes off scripted, you miss it.
Yes. And the audience can tell that you've scripted that moment and it comes across as forced and not genuine.
There's a few of those after big major golf tournament wins. That
there's a couple of those. Yeah.
And some of them are really good lines, but you can tell that
was the sport and the particular announcer that was popped into my head.
Okay, good. I don't feel too bad for thinking
No. I was right there with you. It's you're like, I know where I'm going with that one.
But some of them are good. It's good for what it is. I like the raw emotion better. That's my personal preference.
I mean, you can go in and I know that in big games, you have an idea, and I'm not one to script things. So when I go into a game, I'll have an idea as to what I might want to say, but I'm not going to sit there and write it down. If X, then Y. I'm not that kind of I don't think that way.
Yeah, I can't. Okay, lots of random stuff to finish up. Uncle says, when we sold Pitti, I very much think they internally said we aren't going to be very good for a minute. That's fair in this year, but I don't know if that constitutes a rebuild. We're probably, getting into semantics about. But I mean,
at the same time, in this environment that we're in, if a club comes to you and says, "Hey, we're going to give you this suitcase," then how can you? It's the offer you can't refuse.
That's how I saw it, and I don't think he could either because it was a huge raise for him. I don't think you could say no to it, but I do see, what you're saying, Uncle. I just don't know if that constitutes a rebuild. I think it comes up and you have to take it.
Yeah.
Clayton, clarification. I feel like last year Colorado and Orlando fired their coaches, and we talked about them taking forever. That's a good point. I thought you were talking about 2020. COVID does change it in 20 for me. But Colorado, my conversation on it was they should have hired Connor Casey, just given him the job for the rest of the year. It wasn't so much they didn't have a plan. It was that he was doing well. Why didn't they just say he's going to be there the rest of the year and then hire somebody after? But Robin Fraser came in and did really well to finish the year, too. So, you could say they got it right. Now, this year they've been up and down, and it's hard to even compare because of all the games they've missed now. But that's how I felt on Casey. Orlando, trying to remember how it played out exactly, and I don't remember it off the top of my head. I think they had to make the move on They had to make the move when they did. They got it right in the end because they waited for the right manager, because Pareja wouldn't have been available sooner than the end of the Mexico season. And I think once his name came up, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, you should wait, and if you can get him, you get him. I might be misremembering it, though, Clayton, but I do feel like 2020 is a whole different scenario and a whole different conversation. But those two were a little different to me than what we've seen here. I think they were more expected, and this one was not. And I think there was more value this year in seeing it out with an interim as opposed to rushing somebody into the job.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of it's going to depend on who the hire is in the long term. Because if you don't get that one right, then, yeah, there's going to be questions about why didn't you just hire somebody sooner? And that's a valid complaint. That's the pressure right now. Let's see. Kefsy syncing us up on radio with TV. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Nice. Very cool.
Always good. Clayton said today's show has been a very healthy back and forth discussion. That's what we try to do. I mean, nobody has all the answers. Nobody has all the information to even sometimes guess at what the answers are. We're not in the front office. But just try to give you the way we see it. And the biggest thing to me is just make it clear that it's opinion. It's opinion. And if you disagree, that is completely fine. That is completely good. And I like the debate back and forth. I hope it's beneficial for everybody. That's what we try to do. That's how we've always tried to do it. That's why I think it's very important to have so much time with back and forth with you guys. Shiva, Mike just paused for like 5 minutes after the second goal. I was hoping he was okay.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was rough. I think we were all just shocked, to be perfectly honest. It was the epitome of 2020. You just can't give that goal up that way. You can't. And it's a lot of different mistakes. Miles Robinson took most of the blame. He's a big boy. He can handle that. I don't think it's all on him. I think it's on Lennon. It's on Meza. It's on Gazan. I think all of them have blame in it because none of them were connected in defending that situation. You were trying to go find a winner, and you were going to get exposed. You just needed to not get punished. You did. That point would have been valuable. The point you could have had the weekend before would have been valuable. Thad's not a 3-hour show. We still got 19 minutes to get out of here.
Not a 3-hour show.
We're going to. Congrats from Kefsy. Ricky wants to know how much time are we spending on Ajax winning 13-0 tonight?
Oh.
Oof, that's absurd.
Yep.
Let's see. No, you're not going to say Tata Martino for 5 minutes, as Ricky suggests.
No,
not allowed to do that.
No.
Mezzano wants to call it the Conca Cinco. I kind of like that. That's pretty good.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
All right.
Soccer for Good OG. You guys are a lifeline. Appreciate the call, especially when the broadcast company, not to be mentioned, screws the fans out of sports viewing content. And I could hear the pain, Mike especially.
Get this. Jarrett and I were in the press box.
Oh boy.
And so how many booths over are you and Mike from the press box proper?
From where the press box proper is, I'm trying to count them in my head. 1, 2, VAR is somewhere in there. The scoreboard one is somewhere in there. There's an extra one in there, I think, that the Falcons use for stuff. There's 2 more that sometimes are visiting announcer. I think there's 5 rooms in between.
Okay.
And our door was shut, so it wasn't like you were hearing it down the hallway.
No, but what they did is somewhere in the press box, Mike's call was piped in. It wasn't directly over the speakers, so it was probably a couple of angles down. When the goal was scored, the first goal was scored by DC United. When Mike went up about 9 levels, I mean, he was at like plus 12 on the VU meter. You could hear Mike coming through every wall. I mean, it was behind the walls and the seats and the layers. I mean, you heard Mike, and it was loud. It wasn't even through a true speaker above our heads, and we could hear Mike, and it was loud.
Yeah, it was loud. Kessie said that I did well to fill the quiet time post goal. It felt long, but was appropriate, and you were composed when you came in after Mike. I had to play off of that. I mean, it felt like the right way to capture it and try to explain it. Luckily, we had the good feed in the monitor, and the replay came up. Like, I think if you guys listen to me enough, you can kind of tell, like, when I'm waiting on getting more information and in a situation like that, like I'm waiting for the replay to come up, and we're not tied to the TV booth, so I don't know when it's coming. So it's like fill, try to capture the moment. Okay, now we can walk through what happened, and yeah, I mean, that's just trying to explain it. It's hard to explain the inexplicable at times, and that's what 2020 has been quite often.
Yes.
The TV situation, I went back and forth with some folks who listened to the show Friday. The team posted something Saturday about it. The team signed a contract, and the place they signed a contract with Fox Sports South has changed ownership one time. I think they've changed ownership twice, actually, since that deal was renewed.
Twice.
Yeah. It's the contract's still valid. That's the thing. Is people have said, well, why don't you just put the games on your website like DC does? DC had that ability because they signed a contract with Flow FC that was horrendous, and Flow FC couldn't deliver on the contract, so it was declared null and void. So they did not have the streaming rights sold. Atlanta United does. They can't put the game on the website because it goes to Fox Sports Go.
Right.
Because that was part of the deal. So you can't just do that. You can't just break the contract. So the team is stuck in all of this, and that's what stinks about it. And they're not the only team. Kansas City, Minnesota, there's others who are stuck in these situations. It is down to the carriers, and it's down to Sinclair, who now owns the Fox Regional Networks. They have to come to a number and move forward because the fans are getting screwed by the whole thing. But the teams are also getting screwed by the whole thing because there's nothing they can do if there's a valid contract and it hasn't been breached.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what terms there are for it to be breached. If there's an out clause, it's being explored.
Yeah.
But it's a contract. Like, there's only so much you can do. It's very frustrating, and I know everybody's frustrated with it. Just to add to crazy things in 2020, that's another one to make it more difficult. But the team is stuck because they signed a contract with not the previous owners, but the previous owners.
Yes.
For something that has now changed. And this is where you're at. And it's awful.
Yes.
Okay, that's going to do it.
But that's Sinclair.
Yeah, it is. It 100% is. They're the owners. So, I mean, it's just bad all the way around. Yeah. All right, so rest of the day. You got soccer over there coming up at 7. We will get all deep into stuff, along with the debut of Conca Cinco, or maybe something else. We'll come up with the name.
Hey, but the thing is, though, now it's a sponsorable element because it's got the name idea floating out there.
That's true. Burns said, haven't the Dodgers had that problem for years?
Yes,
I think so,
Warner.
But they got paid massive money to have that problem.
Yes.
That's not the situation that the MLS teams are in. And I don't know everybody's deals. I don't know the deal here.
Yes, Sportsnet is not available to 80% of the households in the Los Angeles area.
Yeah, but they've paid, because they paid the Galaxy a lot of money for their rights, too.
And same network, yes.
They've tried to get all of this stuff to get onto carriers, and they still can't get it done.
Yep.
So at least that's a different conversation. Where it's really bad for the MLS teams is they're not getting paid crazy money. They're not getting Dodgers money.
Yeah.
And their games aren't being made available because these networks can't get to agreements with the carriers. And, yeah, welcome to 2020. It's awful.
Sinclair.
Keep going at them. So soccer over there, 7 o'clock till after 9, because that show's turned into more than a 2-hour show. But it's not going to be a 3-hour show.
Nope.
We're against 3-hour shows.
Unless it's sponsored and paid for.
Sure, but we're against them in general, just because it's fun. We're not doing 3 hours. We're not doing 3 hours now. We got 12 minutes to get out. Just saying. No, thank you for wanting us to talk more.
Doubt.
Thank you for wanting to listen to us more, because I feel like at times we're just rambling on into the void until you guys yell at me on the Twitch pitch, which is fun. Okay, so we're going to end with the Andres Cantor goal from Landon Donovan. It is on YouTube. I think we'll be okay playing this. It is out of total respect
it's on YouTube, and that means it's public domain if it's not locked off.
Well, it's not blocked off, and it is out of total respect for an award-winning commentator, Andres Cantor. We will play that, and then we will be gone, and we'll be back at 7 o'clock. So y'all have a good rest of the day. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.
Of course, there's an ad first.
Of course, there's an ad.
So not mucha plata, y'all.
Not the Cars for Kids ad, at least.
No, it's not. All right, we're gonna try that again. We'll be back at 7 o'clock. Mucha plata, y'all.
Y ahora de contragolpe Donovan, se le va larga Donovan, la quiere por derecha Altidor, al área viene, cita por arquero, Donovan, ¡gol! ¡Gol! Landon Donovan tomó el rebote de una jugada que él comenzó de contragolpe después de que se había salvado el equipo de Estados Unidos de la derrota. Landon Donovan, el mejor jugador en la historia de los Estados Unidos, está convirtiendo el gol en el descuento que le consigue la clasificación a la siguiente ronda del Mundial.